Don't you dare come back here. You failure.
For over 20 years, I thought I had been devoted to John. Yet, this is how John really felt about me. I wasn't leeching off him. I was just devoted to him. But now, I'm at a loss for words. As I felt all strength leave my body, John continued.
Ryan's a working adult now, so you have no reason to depend on me, right?
But,
Quiet, I don't want to hear your excuses.
John raised his voice. Oh no, it's hopeless. My feelings didn't reach him. At that moment, I felt something snap inside me. It was the sound of the thread of love that bound our hearts breaking. Simultaneously, my feelings for John began to fade. We were married just a moment ago, but now I feel as if he were a stranger to me. John was just using me from the start. He never loved me. Otherwise, he wouldn't blatantly cheat and try to kick me out. I don't care what happens to such a man. No, I must utterly defeat him. With my mind made up, I looked up and stared straight at John. My name is Karen Johnson. I'm a 50-year-old housewife, married to John for 25 years. Our son, Ryan, was born a few years into our marriage and has just graduated college and started working. With parenting duties winding down, I was looking forward to pursuing my interests. That's what I'm thinking now. But there's just one problem. My relationship with John. John is far from a good husband or father. In fact, it's hard to find anything good about him. He cheats, and he doesn't even provide a proper salary. Please, can you at least contribute to the household expenses?
Huh? Don't get cheeky with me when you're living off my earnings.
John always retorts like this. Maybe it really is hopeless. Maybe divorce is the only option. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. But I can't just suggest divorce easily. My Phil, Bob, who is unwell and hospitalized, asked me to look after John. I owe it to Bob to endure as long as I can. His words can't be ignored. But my desire to divorce is strong. Torn between these conflicting feelings, I find myself reminiscing about the happier times before our marriage. The turning point that led to such happiness before my marriage was actually due to a misfortune that struck my father. Our family owned a small diner. My father was in charge of cooking, and my mother handled the serving. Needless to say, the food was delicious. However, my dad was incredibly bad at business. He started the diner with a desire to feed customers delicious food to their heart's content. I think that's a noble cause. But he ran the diner solely on that sentiment, hardly considering the profitability. It didn't matter to him if the profits were low, as long as the customers were satisfied with tasty food. Naturally, such a business, of course, that would not be profitable. As a result, our family's finances were always tight. Even as a child, I took pride in seeing customers leave satisfied. So I never interfered with my father's business approach. However, when I was in college, a crisis hit. The company supplying ingredients to my dad's diner went bankrupt due to the recession.
We've already paid this month's dues. If this continues, we might have to close our diner.
We were already barely managing as it was, and there was no way we could spare extra funds. Seeing my parents so downcast made me anxious too. But as a college student, there was little I could do. And I doubted the bankrupt company could refund us. The only option seemed to be closing the diner. That's when a regular customer, a man, said something unexpected.
Closing the diner. Such a shame for such delicious food.
But with the supplier's bankruptcy, we'll end up in debt.
Then let me help you personally to get back on your feet.
This regular, who really did lend my father a substantial amount.
I'm glad to help. I'll certainly pay you back.
Don't worry about the money. Just keep making delicious meals,
he said, leaving the diner quickly after. Later, my father started doing business with another food wholesaler. It seems that it was a major food wholesaler there, and the wholesale price of foodstuffs was lower than before. Luckily, our family diner was saved from bankruptcy. About a year later, my father and I went to repay the man. Then, while the man and my father were talking, a young man approached me as I was waiting.
I hear you borrowed money from my dad.
When I talked to him, he was the son of the man who lent us the money. His name is John, and he works for a man's company.
You're pretty. How about going out with me?
Me, with you?
Why not? Think of it as a way to say thanks for the loan.
It was true we were helped by the loan, and my dad had properly thanked him. I thought we owed no more than that, but then John whispered to me,
Ungrateful diner's daughter. I could spread that around, you know.
That's...
I couldn't retort. Even if he did spread rumors, it wouldn't affect me much. But it could trouble my father. And what would the diner's customers think? With these thoughts, I couldn't refuse John's invitation. Reluctantly, I agreed to go out with him. With that in mind, I went out with John. To my surprise, I actually enjoyed it more than expected. John was fun to talk to and knew many exciting places to go. He chose the places we went to with great taste. And I started to think maybe he wasn't such a bad guy after all. That's where my luck ran out. I was quickly wrapped around John's finger.
It's fun being with you, Karen.
I'm having fun too.
I never thought I'd consider marriage until I met someone sincere and good like you.
His simple words swept me off my feet, and I began a relationship with John, considering marriage. John continued to manipulate me in various ways. Eventually, a few years later, I found myself married to him. Of course, I had no idea at the beginning of our marriage that it was all a trap. John seemed genuinely kind, and I felt loved by him. But it was all a lie. As soon as we got married, he showed his true colors.
Here's my salary for the month. Make it work.
I opened the envelope John gave me. Inside was a pay stub. The salary itself was deposited directly into the bank, so just having the pay stubs wasn't suspicious. However, the one thing that struck me as odd was that all the pay stubs were handwritten. Today, handwritten stubs are almost unheard of. But I got married 25 years ago, a time when computers were just beginning to become widespread, and handwritten pay stubs didn't seem out of place.
It's over $1,000. That's normal, right?
I reassured myself. I managed with that small amount of money as best as I could. Over time, I started noticing something odd about John's routine. John leaves the house at a certain time every morning, but returns home at different times. It seemed to change from day to day.
I'm busy with various jobs as my dad's successor.
Then, at least call before coming home.
Stop nagging. All right, I'll call.
He'd shout. His attitude only heightened my suspicions. Maybe he was out playing around. Or even worse, having an affair. But his loud voice scared me from confronting him. Ultimately, even though I had doubts about John's behavior, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Eventually, our son Ryan was born. I thought maybe things would change with a child. But John remained the same. Looking back, I think that's when I first started considering divorce. Then, when Ryan was in middle school, I received a call from my mom while I was out shopping for dinner. What? Dad's in the hospital. My father had been admitted to the hospital. I rushed there immediately.
Your mom's just exaggerating.
My father laughed heartily. I was relieved. I suddenly remembered something that made my heart skip a beat. Oh no, I forgot to contact John. It was too late. My cell phone was flooded with missed calls from John. Panicked, I called John back, only to be greeted by his irritable voice.
Where the heck are you? Get home and make my dinner.
I'm sorry, my dad.
What, your dad?
John asked sharply. I answered in a small voice. Yes, he was suddenly hospitalized.
What does your dad have to do with it? You're my wife, remember?
John's shout made me flinch and close my eyes. I was terrified of his yelling. But I knew I had to stand up for myself. I mustered my courage and responded, "Isn't it natural to worry about my dad? I should be allowed that much, right?"
Shut up. Don't talk back to me.
No, I will say this. You would rush to Bob's side too, wouldn't you? I asked. John suddenly fell silent. I thought putting himself in my shoes would make him understand. But his response was beyond my wildest expectations.
Huh, I'd ignore my dad even if he were hospitalized. After all, I don't need him.
I was speechless. It had to be a lie. But I couldn't deny it. After much hesitation, I told John, "I'm not like you. Sorry, but you'll need to eat out tonight." That was all I could muster. I hung up the phone, feeling numb. Since that incident, I truly lost all trust in John. It was then that I realized the happy times before our marriage were all an illusion. I see. John wanted a housekeeper, not a wife. I said to myself, feeling sad. But I couldn't just wallow in sadness. That's right. If I'm considering divorce, I need to start preparing. I began making plans for a divorce. Then, a few years later, Bob was hospitalized, and his condition was quite serious. He might not be able to leave the hospital. I relayed the doctor's words to John, but John was unfazed.
So, it's going to cost money. Oh,
Is money all you're worried about? Don't you understand?
I understand. I'll talk to my brother.
John contacted his brother, George, who was married but childless, to see if he could help with the hospital expenses.
Can't you pay for it? We have Ryan and Karen here, and it's stuff for us.
John said, as if it were someone else's problem. It reminded me of the time my father was hospitalized. John clearly didn't care about Bob. I couldn't take it anymore. Enough. I'll figure something out and pay for Bob's hospital bills.
Don't forget what you just said.
John yelled. I nodded firmly. In the end, my statement led to us bearing the cost of Bob's hospital stay. Moreover, Bob's illness caused him to step down from his position as president, and John took over. Regardless, John seemed displeased that I had stepped in. Since then, he has barely come home. This was evident even when we discussed Ryan's future. John ignored my calls and didn't come home.
Dad's not coming home again today, huh?
I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean to cause trouble.
It's fine. I don't care about Dad. I want to go to a university in New York.
That's right. Don't worry about the tuition. I'll manage it somehow. Soon, Ryan's admission to a New York university was settled. As expected, John didn't even see him off. Once Ryan moved to New York, the house felt empty. By then, John was only coming home about once a week. Could you transfer a bit more for Bob's hospital bills?
Huh? I've already transferred over half my salary. It should be enough since you're the only one here.
John's contribution was just a small amount of money. Clearly, only a fraction of his salary. His claim of transferring over half was undoubtedly a lie. I knew this, but I didn't have the energy to argue. Years passed, and I received news of Ryan getting a job. Now that Ryan has a job, it might be time to talk about divorce. I had prepared for this over the years. The only thing left was timing. When and where should I bring it up to avoid conflict? These thoughts consumed my mind. It's not really about avoiding conflict, is it? I laughed bitterly at myself. One day, after visiting Bob in the hospital, after chatting with Bob and returning home as usual, I was startled when I was about to open the front door. I didn't know why, but the front door was unlocked. Was it a burglar? I peeked inside cautiously. Then, I heard the TV and John's laughter from the living room. Relieved that John was home, I entered the living room. John was laughing loudly while watching TV. You're home.
Yeah, just thought I'd tidy up the house a bit.
Tidy up. I looked around as John suggested. Upon closer inspection, some items in the room were missing. Huh? It looks like some things are missing.
Yeah, I threw them away. Your stuff.
Threw away my stuff. Shocked, I rushed to my room. It was empty. My computer, TV, even my favorite mug are all gone. Even the bed, everything was missing. What is this?
I threw them out because they're no longer needed.
Not needed. What am I supposed to do now? As I raised my voice, John frowned, looked away, and sighed.
How should I put it? I'm tired of supporting you.
What is that supposed to mean? I am your wife, I retorted, and John got irritated. He suddenly raised his voice.
Do I have to spell it out? Don't leech off me anymore, you failure.
For over 20 years, I thought I had been devoted to John. But this is how he really felt about me. I wasn't leeching off him. I was just devoted to him. Words failed me as my strength drained away, and John continued.
Ryan's a working adult now, so you have no reason to depend on me, right?
But
Shut up, I don't want to hear your excuses.
John shouted. Oh no, it's hopeless. My feelings didn't reach him. At that moment, I felt something snap inside me. It was the sound of the thread of love that bound our hearts, breaking. At the same time, my feelings for John began to fade. We were married just a moment ago, but now he feels like a stranger. John was just using me from the start. He never loved me. Otherwise, he wouldn't blatantly cheat and try to kick me out. I don't care what happens to such a man. No, I must utterly defeat him. With my mind made up, I looked up and stared straight at John.
What? Got something to say?
Nothing? If you want me to leave, I'll do just that. I slammed the living room door with force and headed to my room. But there was nothing of mine left. Not even a single piece of clothing.
Don't bother looking. It's all gone. I had the junk collectors take it away.
Which company did you use for this?
The flyer's right here. That's the one.
I picked up the flyer of the disposal company that was on the floor. While dialing the number, I told John, "You're going to regret this." After saying that, I immediately left the house. The call connected shortly. Once I explained the situation, they readily understood. It seems they had felt something off about John's actions and had kept everything they collected intact. "I'll be right over. Thank you so much," I said, expressing my gratitude before hanging up. Then I went to the disposal company. After thanking them, I had them move my belongings into a storage unit I had just rented. Relieved that my belongings were safe. You won't get away with this so easily. Grinding my teeth, I called Ryan and briefly explained the situation before saying, "So, I've decided to move out, considering a divorce. That's what you should expect, okay?"
Okay. Bye then.
Ryan quickly ended the call. He seemed scared of me. Was I really that angry? I pondered as I put my phone back into my bag and headed to a nearby business hotel. In fact, I had already decided where to move. The reason was simple. I had been planning to talk to John about divorce soon. My plan was to divorce and start a new life there. Well, it's just happening a bit sooner than planned. Honestly, I wasn't in trouble. It was just an advancement of my plans by a mere 2 weeks. 2 weeks in a hotel. What a waste. I couldn't help feeling it was wasteful. A typical housewife's habit. Maybe I should bill him for the hotel too. Well, brace yourself, John. I muttered to myself and started working on my post-divorce plans. After about 10 days living in the business hotel, John called me during lunch. As soon as I answered, he raised his voice.
You stole my money.
What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. It's about my dad's hospital bills. The hospital just called asking for payment.
Bob, that is what it is, I thought, sighing in response. That. Just pay it yourself. I'm not involved anymore since you kicked me out.
I've been transferring living expenses to you. You're supposed to pay for that.
Sure, but isn't the bank book for that account with you now? I replied calmly, knowing well that there was no money in that account. I couldn't help but grin.
I have the bank book, but there's no money in it. That's why I'm saying you stole it.
I didn't steal anything.
Don't lie. Who else could use it?
He never thought the amount he transferred was too little, did he? I replied, exasperated. The money was always too little from the start. If there's no money for the hospital bills, why don't you use your allowance?
My allowance.
John started to panic, clearly thinking I was unaware. Since the beginning of our marriage, John had been giving me handwritten salary slips to hide the fact that he was skimming off a portion of his salary. In other words, the money he skimmed became his allowance. I asked Bob once, how much is John's salary, you know?
So, that's...
He seemed puzzled, but he told me. So I knew you were skimming money. When I told him this, John fell silent. A long silence followed. So long I wondered if the call had dropped. Then suddenly, John raised his voice.
What's wrong with me using the money I earned? It's your fault for using up all the money I gave you.
Okay. And then?
I want a divorce. I'll demand alimony. You need to pay back the money you used.
John's words made me grin inwardly. I had him right where I wanted him. He couldn't back out now. I replied with a smile. Oh, thank you. I wanted a divorce too. Come over to my place for the divorce discussions.
What? No. But, I mean...
You want a divorce, right? I've prepared evidence of your infidelity, and I'm waiting. Though I couldn't see him, I could tell John was taken aback by his faltering voice.
Evidence of infidelity? What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. I have photographic evidence.
Photographic evidence?
I could imagine John's flustered expression. Holding back laughter, I continued. Well, I'll give you the address, and let's meet next Sunday to discuss it in detail. After giving him a certain address unilaterally, I quickly hung up. I've successfully pushed for a divorce. Now, if only I can make him apologize. It was going to be tough, but I was ready. On the agreed Sunday, I arrived at the meeting place before the scheduled time. He should be arriving soon. Looking around, I spotted John in the corner of my eye. Over here. I waved and called out. John looked up, startled.
What? This place?
Yes, I gave you the address, remember?
But this place? Whose mansion is this?
John looked behind me, where a mansion worth about $1 million stood. It was much larger than a regular house, complete with a garden, 3 stories, a basement, and even a home theater. A luxury car was parked in the attached garage. Pointing at the mansion, I smiled. This is my house. It's brand new and beautiful, isn't it?
What, your house?
Yes, I was planning to live here after the divorce, so I had it built recently. Yes, the place I had summoned John to was my newly built house. Naturally, John, who had always thought of me as just a housewife, was utterly astonished. I pushed him from behind into the house and led him to the living room. Let's have our discussion. This is my lawyer. I introduced my lawyer, who was waiting inside. But John was too distracted to pay attention. He was looking around nervously. He seemed concerned about his surroundings, constantly looking around, not even glancing at the evidence of his infidelity on the table or responding to me. It was hardly a conversation. Eventually, John asked in a low voice,
How did you afford this house?
"Is that what's bothering you?" I mused, answering nonetheless. "I just bought it normally."
Liar, how can a housewife afford this?
To buy a $1 million house, one would typically need an income of around $150,000 per year. But I had that kind of income. So I calmly replied, "I earn that much. Got a problem with that?"
No. But how?
I was helping a friend with her company, and before I knew it, things ended up like this. Maybe. The story goes back a few years. When my father was hospitalized and we had a dispute, I decided to divorce. I started preparing for it, first by looking for a job. After the divorce, I needed a job to live. So I looked for a job that would allow me to live independently. But good jobs aren't easy to find. So I consulted my close friend, Susan.
Why don't you help me with my work?
Your work? What do you do?
Land-based aquaculture.
Land-based aquaculture is a method where pools are artificially created for farming fish. Though there are drawbacks, it's eco-friendly as it prevents ocean pollution. Susan's father started it, and now she is running it.
So, I started working there.
John asked tentatively. After I started helping, the business suddenly began to do well. My role was mainly negotiation and administrative work. Susan said I was a huge help, and I was promoted to an executive position. It was all coincidental, but luck is part of skill, I believe. Hearing my story, John slumped in defeat, but then suddenly looked up.
Okay, let's forget the divorce. How about we start over?
Despite his words, I replied with a cold gaze. What? Can you say that in your sleep?
No, I'm serious. I really want to start over with you.
John pleaded passionately, but I knew he was just blinded by my money. So I replied with raised eyebrows. I refuse to be with someone who cheats, and someone who neglects their father, too.
No, about my dad.
Enough. You might not know, but I was the one paying for Bob's hospital bills. The money John gave me was really a pittance. After paying for groceries, utilities, and other miscellaneous expenses, there was never anything left. That's all he ever gave me, let alone enough to cover Bob's hospital bills. Initially, I managed somehow, but after starting my job, I covered the bills with my salary. Despite that, you never listened to me, nor did you visit Bob.
That's...
I can't trust someone like that. As I raised my voice, John looked deflated. The lawyer then discussed the alimony with him. John couldn't say anything, and just nodded until the end. Eventually, encouraged by the lawyer, John signed the divorce papers. The alimony was set at $30,000. Now that the divorce is finalized, you'll be paying for Bob's hospital bills from now on, I said as John nodded, seemingly unhappy, but not objecting. I felt relieved. In the end, I sent John away, glad it was finally over. The only regret was that I couldn't get an apology from him. But I had one last move. With that, I was sure John would apologize. Thinking about it made me smile unintentionally. A few days later, on my way back from the office, someone called out from behind.
Hey, Karen.
I turned around to find John standing there. Don't be so familiar. We're divorced now.
Shut up. What did you do?
John looked at me, his face red with anger. I realized then. The talk must have happened at the company. Smiling, I teased him. What do you think I did?
Don't joke around. Tell me, how did you get me fired?
John was stomping his feet in frustration. I couldn't help but smile at his amusing state. Isn't it your own doing, getting fired for having an affair with the office clerk? John's affair was with a clerk at his company, where he had acted recklessly, thinking he could do anything as the president. Right after the divorce was settled, I reported this to Bob. While he regretted the divorce, he was furious about John's behavior. I showed him the photographs of the affair, which infuriated him even more. Then he made an offer.
I'm thinking of transferring all my shares in the company to you, Karen.
To me, wouldn't it be better for George?
No, I want you to have them. Use them to dethrone John from the presidency.
That's what Bob had said. Bob's company was a corporation, where shareholder resolutions are necessary to appoint executives, although decisions can also be made by the board of directors. In smaller companies like Bob's, where he owned most of the shares. A single shareholder could make significant decisions. But in small companies, it's common for the president to own most of the shares. When I inherited all his shares, I had the power to make decisions alone. But it wasn't me who decided to fire John. I informed George about the affair and my new shareholder status. The rest was his decision. George was considerate. Why did he listen to you?
It's not about listening to me.
It's about what's best for the company. John collapsed on the spot and began to apologize.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
No,
I'll be lost without a job.
his predicament was none of my concern. It was all self-inflicted. I won't forgive you.
Please, I'm begging you.
It was all self-inflicted. I turned my back on him. Sorry, but there's nothing I can do.
Why? If you have the shares.
I sold them to George and his wife. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. At that moment, I heard John sobbing. But I walked away, pretending not to hear. John was eventually ousted from the company. Perhaps he could have stayed as an employee, but his arrogant behavior, starting from his entry through nepotism, made that impossible.
I refuse to be an employee.
He had said. Once fired, he was out. Now he's reportedly working as a convenience store clerk, a difficult-to-find job at his age. He's likely to spend his old age in regret, without money. As for me, post-divorce, I became more focused on my work. There's no talk of remarriage, but there are a few men among my colleagues. A new spring might come. While thinking this, I received a call from Ryan.
I'm bringing my girlfriend over.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I failed in marriage, but I hope Ryan doesn't. But I'm sure it'll be okay. Ryan is much more stable than I ever was.
So, I hear you're drowning in debt because of some futile fertility treatments.
My ex-husband sneered at me as he approached me with a sarcastic smile. This was in a renowned hot spring town. We reunited in the most unexpected place.
It's pathetic how hard you're trying despite it all being in vain.
My ex-husband looked down on me. After our divorce, he remarried and was blessed with children. He was living a contented family life. He considered himself the winner while belittling me. Whose story are you even talking about? I touched my slightly swollen belly. I wonder who really needs fertility treatments. He was about to learn a shocking truth. No matter how much he ranted or clung to me, it was too little, too late. This marked the beginning of my ex-husband's downfall. The false happiness he had acquired through his misunderstandings was crumbling loudly. Those who find happiness, and those who let it slip away. Our reunion clearly marked the diverging paths our lives would take from here on. My name is Mary. I work at a travel agency counter. I propose various plans to customers who visit the store, arranging trips that ensure their satisfaction. I found great fulfillment in this job. I married Mike after a workplace romance. He joined as the new manager at the branch where I worked. always approaching me with a gentle smile and a calm demeanor. During the busy seasons like summer break, we worked late together. During breaks at work, we would engage in enjoyable conversations and encourage each other through tough times, gradually spending more and more time together. Eventually, we became conscious of each other, started dating, and got married. After our marriage, I transferred to another branch.
The travel agency job involves a lot of overtime and is challenging. You've worked hard without a single complaint. Now that we're married, you can take it easy and be a housewife.
His caring words filled me with a deep sense of happiness, appreciating the kindness my husband showed me. However, I was passionate about my work and had dreams I wanted to achieve. For those dreams, I had lived a frugal life and saved money. So, I decided to continue working even after marriage. John respected my decision, and we both worked hard at different branches. We understood each other's jobs and enjoyed our small happiness by comforting each other over drinks every night. 2 years had passed since we got married. We haven't been able to have a baby yet. I started feeling anxious as we hadn't conceived after 2 years. I lost my parents when I was a student. Being an only child, I often felt lonely. That's why I longed for a large family. Therefore, after getting married, while not necessarily desiring a very large family, I did hope to have at least 2 children.
Don't worry, it'll happen eventually.
My husband was receptive to my feeling. He also agreed on having children. I wonder if I'm infertile. Maybe I should see a doctor. I looked down, feeling disheartened.
Don't be so negative. It'll be all right. But if you're worried, it won't hurt to get checked out.
Saying that, my husband gently stroked my head. He always understood me. I felt so moved that I was nearly brought to tears. After that, I went to the OB/GYN and underwent several tests. The multitude of tests revealed no particular abnormalities in my body.
It's good there's nothing wrong.
My husband said that happily upon seeing the test results.
See, I told you there's no need to rush. The baby will come to us eventually.
I wonder how many times I've been saved by my husband's gentle smile. It always made me feel so much lighter. Next up is a test for men. It's a short procedure. So could you possibly go during a break from work? It's likely that my husband also had no issues. But just to be cautious, I wanted him to get tested. Of course, I believed my husband would gladly accept. I was certain of it.
What? Why do I have to get tested? It's usually a woman's issue when it comes to infertility, and it would be a waste of time for me to do it.
His response was unexpected. It might be unnecessary, but just to be sure, if there is an issue on the man's side, there are treatments available. Could you please do it? His expression turned somewhat cloudy. I understood his reluctance to get tested. If a problem was found, it might hurt his pride as a man. It was a delicate issue. I knew it wouldn't be good to force the issue. It doesn't have to be right away, whenever you have time. However, he remained silent. The day ended without me getting an answer from him. One day, we visited my husband's family home. It was my Mill's birthday, and we brought a bouquet and a gift. I heard that my Phil had an affair when my husband was young and disappeared afterward. Afterward, my Mill, on her own, raised my husband and did a commendable job. I heard she went through a lot of struggles. She turned 65 this year and had retired from her job. She worked tirelessly all these years and never neglected her parenting duties. I had great respect for my Mill as a woman. She could now spend her time happily and at ease. That's what I thought. I was certain the bouquet and gift would bring joy. With that confidence, I opened a door to my Mill's house.
Though, welcome.
My Mill greeted us with a bright smile.
Oh, what beautiful flowers, and this, a set of bath salts. You remembered how much I love baths. I'm so happy.
As expected, my Mill was very pleased. It was supposed to be a pleasant time spent together. However, she then said, I'm happy with the gifts and flowers, but I'm starting to wish to be able to see the face of a grandchild. Her words changed the atmosphere instantly. I was at a loss for words and glanced at my husband. But he remained silent.
Mary, I understand work is busy, but there are things more important than work. You have to face your health properly and focus on child making. There's always fertility treatment available now.
I had already faced my health issues. I had also undergone the tests. There were no problems found.
I just want to hold a cute baby in these arms soon. Mary, I'm counting on you.
My Mill was also the same. Why is infertility always presumed to be a woman's issue? Why doesn't she say anything to my husband? Yes. I couldn't argue. I was afraid that arguing would create a rift between my Mill and me. I wanted my husband to explain it properly, but he remained silent the whole time. It felt as though everyone assumed the reason we couldn't have children was entirely my fault.
I'm hoping you'll have a baby in your belly by my next birthday.
Those words weighed heavily on me. Setting a deadline only made me feel more anxious. I tried to tell myself not to worry, but her words echoed in my mind. I couldn't remember anything about the conversation that followed. As the evening came, we left my Mill's home. On our way back, we walked shoulder to shoulder in silence. Our long shadows were cast by the setting sun. I kept looking at those shadows. My husband's shadow marched straight ahead. What was he thinking? How did he take his mother's words today? I wanted to ask but couldn't bring myself to do it. No, I was afraid to ask about it. I was scared of feeling despair from my husband's words again. We returned home without speaking.
I'm starving. Let's have dinner quickly.
He said that, acting as if nothing had happened. He probably planned to end the day without addressing my feelings. I decided to speak up boldly. Hey, John, about what your mom said today. He turned to me with his usual smile.
What about it?
Was that smile just for show? She said she wanted grandchildren. I looked straight at him.
Yo, but if it's not happening, we just have to wait, right?
No, that's not what I wanted to say. She told me to think about my body over work and to undergo fertility treatments. But I have faced the issue and got tested, and there were no problems found. His expression slowly changed. Why didn't you say anything at the time? It feels like it's all my fault. But it's not me who isn't facing the issue. It's you, John, isn't it? I didn't intend to say it like that. But once I started, the words just wouldn't stop. All my pent-up frustration erupted.
What the hell? Always about the tests. I've told you, Infertility is a woman's issue. And what mom said wasn't wrong. It's not my fault.
He got angry, his face turning red. He wasn't the husband I knew. I know it's not your fault, John. It's wrong to blame anyone for infertility. But I just want to move forward. To do that, we need to start with the tests, whether it's for treatment or not. No matter how much we argued, we couldn't accept each other's viewpoints, and it remained a stalemate.
This is too much hassle. I'm hungry. I'm going out to eat.
With those words, my husband left the house. I was left alone in the quiet room. Suddenly, I felt all the strength drain from my body, and I slumped onto the sofa. The image of my husband yelling kept flashing back in my mind. Was it my fault? I didn't mean to upset my gentle husband. This wasn't what I intended. I just wanted him to understand. I wanted us to work together towards our future. The testing was for that purpose. I couldn't stop my tears. In the quiet room, only the sound of my sobbing echoed. The next morning, my husband returned home in silence. You said you were going out to eat. Where did you spend the night? I was worried. He didn't seem to listen to me.
It doesn't matter.
That was all he said before leaving for work. It was our first major fight. These things happen. I hoped he would be in a better mood by evening. Thinking this, I too headed to work. I kept sighing all morning. However, my husband's mood didn't improve for days. He started leaving home earlier and coming back later than before. On weekends, he would go out without a word and return when I was asleep. The time we spent together as a couple had drastically reduced. It felt like he was avoiding me. I no longer knew how to interact with him. Eventually, this silent coexistence became our new normal. I couldn't even remember the times when we cherished being together. What had driven us to this point? Was suggesting the test really so wrong? And finally, my husband stopped coming home. You've been away a lot recently. Where do you stay? He had started to have conversations with his back turned to me.
I'm busy with work and always miss the last train, so I stay at a business hotel near my office.
Likewise, he kept his back to me. I see. Then he headed to the bedroom. At some point, my bed had become the couch. It's just a ridiculous excuse to say that work ran late and you missed the last train. It wasn't our busy season. He was hiding something. My suspicion turned into reality weeks later. My husband comes home every few days, dumping a huge pile of laundry on me. Then he packs his freshly washed underwear and clothes in his bag and hurries out. You could do your own laundry. It's not that much trouble. I muttered as I loaded his laundry into the washing machine. At that moment, something dropped with a clink. I looked at the floor but found nothing. However, I was sure I had heard something. I searched again, more carefully this time. What could have fallen? Stepping back, something sparkled at my feet. Here it is. What is this? I picked up the shining object and held it in my hand. Oh. I was at a loss for words. What sparkled in the palm of my hand was a small earring. My mind went blank for a moment, but I wasn't as shocked as I thought I would be. By the time he stopped coming home, it was clear to anyone. My husband was having an affair. Somewhere in my heart, I harbored those suspicions. But I was afraid to confront the truth and tried to dismiss it. I didn't want to hurt myself. However, I was now confronted with reality. I wouldn't run away anymore. I decided to have an honest conversation with my husband. With evidence of his infidelity in hand, it was time to end our marriage. The next day, I headed to a detective agency. A few days later, my husband's affair was confirmed. The other woman was a new employee at the branch where my husband worked. She joined the company around the time when cracks began to appear in our marriage, a young and attractive staff member. My husband, with his characteristic gentle tone and charming smile, captivated her. He got closer to her by acting as her mentor and eventually started a relationship. It was new to me, but apparently, my husband had made advances toward various female employees before. As a supervisor, he used sweet words to get close to them and deepen their relationships. It was his cunning method. I was just one of the women caught in his trap. The reason he chose me as a marriage partner must have been because I was particularly convenient for him. I felt a surge of resentment. It was time to end this life. I was determined. That night, as usual, my husband came home with a load of laundry. You don't have to come home just to do laundry. Why not have it done at her place? I spoke to his back. He stopped and turned around.
What are you talking about? I told you, it's work.
He looked at me with a cold gaze. Then is this part of your job too? What exactly are you teaching this female employee after work? I presented him with several photos. They showed the two of them leaving the workplace and entering the apartment where she lived alone.
What is this?
He seemed unable to hide his shock. Don't play dumb. I've investigated everything. And this earring, wasn't she looking for it? It was caught in your shirt. He froze, looking at the earring in my hand.
I never thought you could be such a person with terrible habits towards women. Let's end this. Now you can openly date this woman.
I said this and handed him the divorce papers. A silent atmosphere filled the room. My husband stared at the divorce papers with a look of surprise on his face. Suddenly, he burst into laughter.
What's this? Sour grapes. Are you bitter just because you can't have kids? If you've got time to take pictures like this, why not diligently pursue treatment to get pregnant?
What an appalling thing to say. Who's really being bitter here? I struggled to contain my rising anger.
Divorce. I've been wanting that too. The other woman is pregnant. I've been eager to cut ties with you and move on. I only care about my new family now.
What a reckless man, to get the other woman pregnant. I was speechless. That was how our divorce was concluded. A swift and unceremonious end. John took only the bare essentials with him when he left. I decided to move out of the apartment we shared. After canceling the lease, I began packing up. Everything he left behind went straight into trash bags. I had no regrets whatsoever. Just then, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at a time like this? I slowly opened the door. Outside the door stood a man. His hair was unkempt, and he was wearing dirty clothes. He was a stranger I had never seen before. He then greeted me sincerely and began to speak. I was astounded by the man's words. Then, 3 years passed. I continued to live frugally after the divorce, and finally, my savings reached the target amount. I had made my dream come true. Then, I resigned from the travel agency. One day, I was walking through a hot spring town. This is one of the most famous hot spring towns in the USA. The outdoor bath store was popular, and people happily strolled through the town, visiting various hot spring facilities. Recently, new sweet shops and cafes have opened, becoming popular among young people. I love this vibrant hot spring town and have moved nearby. Enjoying a stroll in the pleasant weather, I suddenly heard a familiar voice call my name from behind. Who could it be? I was shocked and lost for words at the sight that met my eyes when I turned around. It was my ex-husband, whom I had parted ways with 3 years ago.
Didn't think we'd run into each other here. On a solo hot spring trip. How miserable.
My ex-husband was wearing work clothes. He was sporting a stubbly beard, and his hair was unkempt. I wondered if he had quit the travel agency. I never imagined we would meet here. My pleasant walk was completely spoiled.
So, I hear you're drowning in debt because of those futile fertility treatments.
John approached me with a sarcastic grin.
All that effort for nothing. How sad.
He scoffed, clearly looking down on me. He probably wanted to show off to me that he had children with his new wife and was living happily. He seemed to think of himself as the winner and looked down on me. Who are you talking about? I gave John a cold stare.
I heard from the landlord of our old apartment. You've gotten yourself into debt, haven't you? After I left, some guy you borrowed money from came to collect money. You went into debt for expensive fertility treatments and ended up with nothing but a huge debt, right?
The man he referred to was the one who visited while I was cleaning the apartment after our divorce. Debt? You're mistaken. Well, sometimes it's better to live in blissful ignorance. I then shared the truth to my ex-husband, whose expression clouded over slightly. It was a shocking truth for him. 3 years ago, after my divorce from my ex-husband, a man indeed visited as I was clearing out the room for moving. The man was not there for debt collection. He was actually my ex-husband's father. It was the father whom I had been told disappeared with an affair partner. He had come looking for my ex-husband. The father seemed to have learned from someone about the apartment where my ex-husband was living his married life. However, by then we had divorced and the apartment lease had been canceled. The name tags and mailbox labels had been removed, so his father didn't know which unit was John's. He had mentioned John's last name to the landlord, saying he wanted to meet because he had lent him money. The landlord, fearing the man was a debt collector, immediately contacted me. Upon receiving the message about the visitor from the landlord, I simply said, "Let him in. I'll meet him." The landlord loved to gossip, and I was afraid of any strange rumors spreading. It turned out the landlord, believing the father to be a debt collector, likely shared this amusing tale with John upon a chance encounter. John took it seriously. The reason my ex-husband's father visited the room was to request a loan. He had been abandoned by his affair partner and was struggling financially. Thus, he managed to find out my ex-husband's whereabouts and came to borrow money. Unaware of the divorce, the father approached me with his utmost sincerity. However, to me, a divorced woman, this was entirely irrelevant. This man was no relative or concern of mine. I directed him to rely on my ex-husband instead, giving him John's contact information. With that, he left. Hearing this, my ex-husband became furious, his face turning bright red with anger.
You gave him my contact. Since then, I've been hassled with support inquiries.
In the hot spring town filled with cheerful laughter, my ex-husband's angry voice stood out.
Why should I have to support him? He left me and my mother. It's too much for him to show up now expecting help.
It's understandable that my ex-husband would be angry. It was entirely his father's selfishness. However, I had no sympathy for that situation.
Then my wife said she couldn't deal with such a troublesome Phil and talked about getting a divorce.
That sounded unfortunate.
But for the sake of our unborn child, I convinced her to give our marriage another chance, and by helping with her family's cleaning business, we managed to settle things.
I looked at the logo on my ex-husband's work clothes. It seemed that his wife's family was in the cleaning business, judging by the company name written there. John had given up his position as a travel agency branch manager to work daily at hot spring inns as a cleaner. His income from the cleaning job was entirely managed by his wife, leaving him with no disposable money. His wife, aware of his wandering eye, likely wanted him under her parents' watchful eyes by making him quit the travel agency job. I was impressed by his young yet capable wife. You have a strong wife, but it's rare for a wife to restrict her husband so much. Is there another reason? John suddenly went quiet, turning pale.
What? Are you hiding something else?
I had nothing to hide. However, there was just one thing that intrigued me. I wonder if the child really is yours. I said that while gently touching my slightly swollen belly. My ex-husband froze as he looked at my belly. It was as if time had stopped just for him. In fact, I was pregnant. As the tests confirmed, there was nothing wrong with me. After the divorce, I led a life far beyond what my ex-husband could have imagined. That life was sheer happiness. As I said this, I attempted to enter the luxury inn in front of me. Then my ex-husband called out, "Wait, please listen to me." But I felt no obligation to hear him out any further. We didn't ask for your cleaning services, so don't come inside. He looked at me, bewildered.
What do you mean we? Who are you to this inn?
I didn't need to continue the conversation, but I decided to leave him with one final remark. I own this inn. His face turned pale once again. My parents adored this hot spring town. When I was young, our family often stayed at a small inn in this hot spring town. That inn, filled with our memories, became very old and neglected, overshadowed by the newer, larger inns surrounding it. Eventually, it faced financial difficulties and nearly closed. My dream was to purchase and revive this inn. I saved most of my earnings from the travel agency, and with frugality, I reached my savings goal. I bought the inn with my inheritance and savings, renovated it, and reopened it. Using my experience from the travel agency, I created a welcoming place for everyone, young and old, men and women alike. The reputation of the inn spread rapidly. The inn quickly gained an excellent reputation and now ranks among luxury establishments, with my net worth reaching approximately $130 million. Particularly well received at the inn was the food. Menus were carefully crafted for each guest, with meals provided accordingly. Many guests returned specifically for the dining experience. The dishes reflected the dedication of the chef, who spared no effort in catering to the guests. I empathized with the chef's caring nature, and we were drawn to each other. And so, I had a remarriage by getting married with him. Shortly after our marriage, I became pregnant. I no longer had any conversation with my ex-husband. I turned my back on him.
Please, wait.
He probably only wanted to stop me for money. To me, my ex-husband was then a stranger. I owe him nothing. I have nothing more to say to you. Never appear before me again. I said that dismissively and entered the inn. Nevertheless, he tried to follow me into the inn, but was stopped by the staff and expelled outside. His voice calling my name faded away and eventually disappeared. Our unexpected reunion marked a turning point in our respective lives. Weeks later, I received a letter at the inn addressed to me. I was surprised when I saw the sender's name. It was my ex-husband. I thought everything had ended between us. Curious and slightly anxious, I opened the envelope. The sheet of stationery was filled with dense writing, bearing distinctive quirks, and mistakably written by my ex-husband. The letter contained astonishing information. The content was as follows. During our reunion, John began to wonder if the cause of infertility lay with himself, and he asked his wife if he truly was the father of their child. Although she initially insisted it was his, he had long felt a dissonance due to the child's lack of resemblance to him. Therefore, after repeatedly questioning his wife, she finally confessed. The child he thought was his own was actually from her previous relationship with another man during her student days. After graduating from college and joining a travel agency, the wife quickly caught my ex-husband's eye, and they started having an affair. But for her, it was just a fling. Her real commitment was to a boyfriend from her student days. She got pregnant with this boyfriend's child and considered marriage, but he disappeared upon learning of her pregnancy. Being a recent graduate and unexpectedly finding out about the impending parenthood, she likely felt anxious and overwhelmed by the responsibility at such a young age. Facing the prospect of becoming an unwed mother, she lied that the child was my ex-husband's, marrying him for financial stability. However, after learning that my ex-husband's father had abandoned his family for an affair, she saw parallels with her own past of being abandoned by her own boyfriend. To rein in her promiscuous ex-husband, she resorted to threatening divorce, which succeeded in getting his attention. She forced him to work under her parents' supervision, controlling his salary, and leaving him without any spending money. Tired of this constrained life, my ex-husband spiraled into madness. Constant arguments with his wife became routine, leading him to choose divorce. However, his in-laws opposed it. Even so, my ex-husband, who chose divorce, swiftly left his wife's side as if fleeing. Consequently, he was left with very little money. Now he wanders from one budget hotel to another. Due to not owning a suit and having poor personal grooming, he struggles to find employment even though he endeavors to search for one. It seems he relies on daily temp jobs, earning just enough to cover his daily meals. He wishes he could go back to the old days again. That's what was written in the letter. I thought to myself, don't mock me by saying you want to get back together with me. While I felt pity for his plight, it was the path he chose. He was marred by infertility issues, infidelity, and disdain towards me at our reunion. He always acted selfishly, never considering my feelings. I am no longer the person I was back then. I have a bright future ahead with my new husband and our soon-to-arrive baby. I instructed my lawyer to issue a restraining order if he ever tried to contact me or appear before me again. And then, I tore up his letter. I'll give birth next month. I do feel both the joy of meeting my baby and the anxiety of my first childbirth. But with the encouragement of my kind husband, I'm getting through each day. He always cares about my health and helps with the chores on weekends. So with him by my side, I'm definitely okay. Today is my husband's day off. Walking through the spa down together, we feel the changing seasons, and afterwards, we soak our feet in a foot bath and take a deep breath. That's our favorite walking route. Oh, the baby just kicked, I exclaimed, and my husband quickly placed his hand on my belly. He then softly spoke to our unborn child. This happiness is not something to be taken for granted. That's why I think we should cherish it. And so, I took another deep breath of the air in this town, surrounded by the beautiful nature.
After receiving shocking news from my mom, my sister, who had eloped and gone missing years ago, had returned, I headed back home with my son. Sure enough, there were women's shoes at the house. Moreover, my sister Mary came out in her underwear. She laughed and said triumphantly to me, "Aha!
I scored a luxury high-rise and a wealthy husband. You poor folks can keep working your part-time jobs forever."
But then, a voice from behind her.
"Too bad for you. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore."
My husband, Mike, said this nonchalantly as he appeared.
"Wait, are you trying to? She's trying to create a fait accompli with me."
He burst into laughter.
"And what would that accomplish? The house is all in Sarah's name."
"Yes, the high-rise we're living in belongs to me. I got it from an inheritance from my ex-husband. My name is Sarah Smith. I'm a 34-year-old working for an organization dedicated to preserving American classical culture. My husband, Mike, a former colleague, is also studying American classics in graduate school, 3 years my junior. He's currently continuing his research while working towards his PhD. His situation allows him the flexibility to do school and activity runs for our son, Joshua, in my place. But that's not all. Honestly, Mike is far better at household chores than I am. His cooking may not be elaborate, but it's efficient. Aside from his study space, he keeps the rest of the house clean with minimal effort. And he handles laundry and related tasks more delicately and meticulously than I do. I'll take care of your life. Can I ask you to handle the household chores? Those were roughly the words with which I proposed to him. Frankly, I fell for him precisely for these qualities. I'm just too busy to handle everything myself. As long as you don't suffer, continue your research, I said. Even his parents were surprised. They even asked if I intended to treat their son as a gigolo, a memory that now brings a smile to my face. But after discussing our feelings, living arrangements, and our child, we got married, and he became a stay-at-home husband. It was an unusual arrangement, but we were happy and got along well. Then, something unexpected happened. It was Tuesday afternoon. As I was about to leave work for the rare occasion of picking up Joshua in place of Mike, who was preoccupied with his dissertation, I suddenly received a phone call. "Hello, Mom, what's up?" It was from my mom. Our family home is far from the urban center where we currently live, a 5 to 6 hour drive away. Since getting married, we've been visiting them for only the summer or Christmas holidays. So, we usually kept in touch through messaging on cell phones. But direct phone calls were rare. Both my parents schedule the time for me because I'm busy at work.
It's serious, Sarah.
What's the matter all of a sudden?
Mary's come back.
Mary. Mary, that's my sister, 2 years younger than me. However, we haven't seen each other for over 10 years. She ran away from home when she was 18.
Apparently, her husband's company went bankrupt.
Bankrupt?
Yes, she was banging on the intercom, saying her husband had run away in the night after racking up a huge amount of debt. And to avoid debt collectors coming after her, she used his signature without permission, got someone to sign a name, and filed for divorce.
An involuntary wow escaped my lips. So now,
I told her she couldn't stay with us, but she had the nerve to show up, and she left her daughter with us.
What? She left her behind?
Yes, she's so young. I asked her age, and I was truly shocked.
What shocked you so much?
When she arrived, I thought she was still in preschool, but she's just a year younger than Joshua.
What? A year younger than 9-year-old Joshua. Then she should be in the 2nd grade. And to think she looked like a preschooler. Mom, is she that small?
She's tiny and skinny, her skin is dry, and she's got chapped skin. For now, I've given her some snacks and let her take a shower, but she seems so uncomfortable.
My mom's voice sounded like she was holding back tears, as if she might break off her words at any moment. But I had to ask this. Mom, you're not going to kick her out, are you?
What are you saying? Of course not. No matter how good for nothing Mary might be, this child is our granddaughter. Her clothes are all tattered too.
That's good. So, Mom, where did Mary go after leaving the child? Yes, I had to ask that.
To your place, Sarah.
Why to my place?
It seems before coming to our place, she went to see some old friends, and somehow she was told you married rich.
I instinctively placed a hand on my forehead. Whoever it was telling half the story just causes trouble. Did they give her my address?
No, but it seems she got your work-related cell phone information.
My work-related cell phone. Well, that can't be helped. In my line of work, I sometimes have to use my work phone to some extent.
That's why Dad is hurrying over to your house now.
Dad is.
So please, hold the fort until then.
Wait, Mom, when did Mary leave there? Before I could get an answer, the call with my mom ended. It's just past 3 p.m. Picking up Joshua from school, then taking him to his lessons, waiting for him to finish, going shopping. Mike has been so absorbed in his work since yesterday that he won't be able to cook for tonight and all of tomorrow for sure. So, shopping is absolutely necessary. And even if he finishes writing, he's likely to fall asleep without eating. Usually, after staying up for about 3 days, he sleeps for a day and a half. But if I have to buy a lot of ready-to-make food, it looks like it will be past 6 p.m. before I know it. I'm worried about what will happen.
Wait, Mom has a sister.
Yeah, I have one.
I see.
In the car, after finishing the shopping, I decided to briefly explain the situation to Joshua. Surprised.
Not really. I mean, with our family, I figured there's always something.
Joshua, at 9 years old and in the 3rd grade, is quite bright and a bit mature for his age. Our slightly unconventional family dynamics meant he understood the situation quickly once explained. I guess he takes after his dad in that regard. As a child, I remember just squabbling simply with my sister. Compared to that, Joshua is calm and thoughtful. I'm a little worried. Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot.
Like what?
Where do I start? There are parts of the story that are okay to share with a child and parts that aren't. Remember the house where Mom and Joshua used to live?
Yeah, it's close to Grandma and Grandpa's place, right?
Mom's sister, well, she didn't like living in that town, and over a decade ago, she ran away with someone she loved.
Wow, that's kind of amazing.
Hey, Joshua. Yes, Mary ran away at 18 with the president of a startup who was nearly 40 at the time. It wasn't out of love, though. Mary was involved in compensated dating. Since she was in high school, neither I nor Mary should have had any difficulty with money. My parents also saved enough money to send us to our preferred schools. I got enough money to buy what I wanted. But it seems that wasn't enough for Mary. She went off to a prestigious university downtown, but by the end of her first year, we got a call from the school administration. Guess what? Mary was pregnant at the time. When Dad, furious, demanded to know who the dad was, Mary confessed without hesitation. That man was the one she had just divorced without permission. Angered by both the compensated dating and her partner, our parents told Mary to leave. She left without a fuss and lost contact. If it had been just leaving, we might have tracked her through her health insurance. But she married the guy. When she became a man's dependent, we couldn't keep her feet at all. Once the initial anger subsided, worry set in. No news at all felt like a breach of duty, and my parents had many reasons to be angry. They became the subject of rumors at work and in the neighborhood, feeling shunned for raising such a daughter. How could you have raised a daughter who could do such a thing? My dad was supposed to be promoted to director, but that's off the table now. And other such grievances I heard were unpleasant to recall. However, something my mom said earlier caught my attention. The child Mary left is 8 years old. That means she's not the child Mary was pregnant with all those years ago. What happened to that child? I can't help but wonder.
Mom, you're making a scary face.
Responding to Joshua's comment, I said, sorry.
Is something bothering you?
Yeah, it's about your cousin. Eventually, we arrived back at the apartment, lugging the heavy shopping bags between us. But they were too heavy. So we decided to borrow a cart from the concierge at the entrance.
Miss Smith, your sister, Miss Jones, was here earlier.
The concierge informed us. Did you let her in?
We checked and copied her ID, just to be safe.
Oh no, I covered my eyes with my palm again. I'm sorry, it's my fault for not making the rules about who can come and go clearer.
So, we shouldn't have let her in.
Well, yes, but it's okay. This time it's on me, and has my dad arrived yet?
Your dad.
Please hold on. the concierge said before going to check.
He hasn't arrived yet.
I see. Well, when my dad does arrive, please let him in right away.
Understood.
I showed a photo of my dad to the concierge, saying, make sure this person is let in no matter what. Then, we loaded our bags onto the cart and took the elevator to the top floor. We're home. And sure enough, there were women's shoes at the door.
Ah, you're back early, aren't you?
My sister, more flamboyant and aged than I remembered. But that wasn't the issue. What's with that outfit? Mary appeared in nothing but her underwear. Joshua, who had been pushing the cart alongside me, was speechless, eyes wide.
What do you mean?
She laughed and said triumphantly to me, aha.
Scored a luxury high-rise and a rich husband. Let the poor keep working their part-time jobs forever.
Joshua and I were stunned. But then from behind her came another voice.
Too bad for you. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore.
Mike appeared behind Mary, wearing nothing but a shirt over his bare skin. Mike's appearance while scratching his shaggy head and Mary's underwear on top of each other can make it look like after an affair. But I had no such parts. I was confident that wasn't the case. I had that confidence.
Using that stuff made me lose my focus. Geez.
Wait, what? You realized it was a sleeping pill, and it didn't work.
I figured I was drugged because of the strange drowsiness, but that doesn't mean I could sleep.
That's not right.
I said, ignoring Mary's comments. Mike turned to Joshua.
Joshua, thanks for helping with the shopping.
Yay, Dad, help me put stuff away.
Pushing the cart inside, Joshua moved toward the kitchen. Okay, Mike said, following him with the cart. And he murmured in a deliberately annoyed and exaggerated tone.
I had heard from Sari about her sister, so I figured there might be something up. But I never expected to be drugged right off the bat. You know, my sleep schedule is all over the place anyway. And with all the stuff I'm thinking about lately, I don't sleep unless I really try to. So yeah, I can tell the difference between natural sleepiness and the drug-induced kind.
Mary's expression grew even more severe.
Well, I figured you were up to something, so I just played along and pretended to sleep. What's with this person?
Mike laid out his words in a calm, matter-of-fact manner. Facing his composed demeanor, Mary, who had seemed so confident at first, was left utterly dumbfounded.
What is with this guy?
There was no better way to say it. She had picked a wrong opponent. What's with you, walking around in that outfit? Were you trying to create some kind of fait accompli by stripping him and pushing him into bed? I let out a deep sigh. Well, why has she always been so foolish? But given the situation, I could guess what had happened. Mary must have learned I was living in a luxury high-rise in the metropolitan area and came here. Then, gathering information around the neighborhood as my sister living in the top-floor penthouse, she found out Mike was a stay-at-home husband doing research related to my current job. Assuming Mike would be home alone, she targeted the time I was out. From Mike's perspective, after repeatedly ignoring the doorbell, he finally answered to find a woman claiming to be my sister. With his mind still half on his dissertation, Mary probably thought, seeing a disheveled, almost pajama-clad man. So she thought like this. Wow, he's young. Did my sister score a younger, intellectual, luxury high-rise owner? That's unfair. I'll steal him. And then, probably carrying sleeping pills for some reason, she tried to drug Mike, strip him, push him into bed, and confront me with the scene. But Mary didn't know Mike. He can become so absorbed in his research and writing that he forgets both time and meals. Attempting such a thing on him was bound to fail, something I knew all too well.
Wait, she was trying to create a fait accompli with me.
Mike's voice grew louder before he erupted into laughter.
What would be the point? The house is all Sarah's, after all.
Yay, what's this aunt even talking about?
Hey, watch it, kid.
Well, technically, he can call you aunt without any issues. He's my son after all.
What, your son? But he's so big, and he's still in his 20s, right?
Well, my sins from my previous marriage.
You remarried. So the rich husband you married.
Something you wouldn't know since you've been running away all this time. As I spoke, I was finally able to go to my room. After hanging up my coat and setting down my bag, Mike served me some tea. Glancing around, I noticed a haphazardly placed bag on the living room table. The bag makes my room feel strangely messy. I felt disgusted. I wanted to get rid of it quickly.
So, you're not going to serve me even a single cup of tea?
Mary watched me drink my tea with a resentful look. I don't really feel like serving someone who drugs their tea. And how long do you plan on staying in that outfit? I don't want a flasher roaming around my house.
First, explain yourself. How come you're the owner of this penthouse?
Oh, why can't conversations with this sister ever go smoothly? Well, I guess I have to explain for her to understand. You see, when my ex-husband passed away, he left us a lot of assets. That's how I bought this place. Paid in full, not a mortgage.
What? Paid in full by you? But this place must be worth millions.
Because that's still just 1/100th of the real estate I currently own. Mary was speechless. Yes, the top floor of this high-rise is completely mine. But that's not all. I now own numerous properties with a total asset value of $200 million. Not only can I live a comfortable life with the income from these properties, but I'm also an advisor to an organization involved in the preservation of American classical culture. Half of it is for tax strategies, and the other half is for Mike's sake. Essentially, my busy daily work involves being a director for this organization. And sometimes I get reports on land matters. Explaining this left Mary astonished.
To you, Sarah.
Yes, to me, because, Mary, you didn't know that I got married right after graduating from college, or even why.
What are you talking about?
Because of the mess you did, Dad's company's credibility plummeted, and we had a tough time.
HMMM. What does it matter what a grown daughter does?
You weren't of legal age at the time. Having a daughter involved in compensated dating from high school made it look like we couldn't even educate our child properly. Mom felt humiliated for a while. Then, I received a marriage proposal from the Brown family.
The Brown family?
Yes, the so-called lords of our hometown.
What? You married into that prestigious family?
I sighed deeply. Then, Mike kindly moved Joshua away, saying, "Let's go over there for a bit." Joshua understood it was an adult conversation.
So, you married into that family?
Yes, but not the person you're thinking of. I married the elder brother, who was the heir at the time.
What? The bedridden, so-called burden of the Brown family.
Yes, it was him. Indeed, my ex-husband was referred to that way. He has been sickly since birth, has hardly been to school, and has always had a doctor. That's why they said he was the burden of the prestigious family. Indeed, the family's burden from an outsider's perspective. But that was never how his family saw him. They all loved him dearly, without any desires. He happened to fall for me during one of my visits home, seen in a hospital. The Brown lords even came to our house. My son, who had never wanted anything before, wanted only one thing, so family members came to ask me, who was more than 10 years younger than him. I married at 22, partly to widen my parents' shoulders. My husband passed away while Joshua was still in my womb. My pregnancy was through IVF, since he didn't have the strength for a natural conception, fulfilling his parents' wish and mine, and I myself agreed for the sake of my sweet ex-husband. He passed away, leaving only his name for our child, unable to see his face. Left a young widow, his parents thanked me, leaving his inheritance as per his will. However, relatives eyeing the inheritance like vultures made me move to a secure high-rise downtown when Joshua started kindergarten. How can you expect me to believe such a windfall story? Mary shook her head in disbelief. She yelled at me with a look of utter disgust on her face. Even if you say that.
So what about him now? After inheriting so much, you were allowed to remarry.
I was. Though I didn't need permission, I consulted them out of respect for my wonderful in-laws, who apologized for having me spend my best years caring for a sick man and undergoing IVF.
As if the inheritance wasn't enough.
They said life and time can't be bought with money. My kind in-laws, who had lost their beloved son to illness, understood the value of time and life well. They must have been touched by their wealth. After moving to the city center, I found myself exhausted from solo parenting, a stark contrast to the life surrounded by my in-laws. That's when I reconnected with Mike, a junior from college who had admired me. He became a great help to me, overwhelmed as I was. As he came and went, gradually Joshua grew fond of him. And I found myself wishing he would stay with us permanently, so I proposed. My in-laws described Mike as apparently harmless to anything but academics. Their support, rather than opposition, was probably also to deter relatives who were pushing their candidates for remarriage.
So, you're the only one getting a good deal.
Mary started to say when my phone's ringtone interrupted her. A call at this time meant, I switched the phone to speaker mode after answering.
Hello, Sarah. I was worried because you hadn't replied to my messages. Are you okay?
Mary groaned on the spot. Mom, I'm fine.
Good. I thought I heard a noise like stepping on a frog. Is Mary there by any chance?
Yes, she is. I looked at Mary with a full smile.
Mom, why do you know this place?
You always forget what you've said after 3 steps. Didn't you say you were going to your sister's place?
Terrible. Why do you treat my sister differently even though we're both your daughters?
Mary yelled at the phone, genuinely angry.
What? As if you have the right to say that. After you left, Sarah marrying into the Brown family ended the terrible rumors surrounding our family. It wasn't quite being outcasts, but Dad's prominent position in the company only made the rumors worse. That situation lasted only 2 years thanks to Sarah. The Brown family helped a lot, saving our neighbors, relatives, and Dad's company factions. You were about to ruin all Dad's hard work and progress in the city's most important company.
That's your problem. I never asked him to succeed.
Yet, we could attend a private college in the city because of that.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you get to hold it over me.
Well, maybe you're right about that, Mary, but what about the child you had in your belly back then?
Mom's voice turned cold as she asked Mary.
What?
You ran off with your partner because you were pregnant. What happened to that child?
He took the child with him.
I managed to contact him.
No, groaned Mary.
I got his number when I looked for your whereabouts through the Brown family connection.
My mom told me so.
He apologized for running away and thanked me for the divorce. He may not have been great at making money, but he was a better person than you. He's working somewhere far away to pay off his debts alone.
Alone? I asked Mom.
Yes, alone. You can guess what that means, Sarah.
Mom had mentioned that the child Mary brought was in a terrible state. I quickly turned to Mary. You, the child.
Stop it. Why are you looking at me like that?
Mom mentioned that the daughter you left with her was terribly malnourished.
That's because things have been tough lately.
Tough for someone carrying that kind of bag. I pointed to the bag thrown on the living room table. It's clearly a designer brand, isn't it?
I bought it 2 or 3 years ago.
Mom said she is just a year younger than Joshua, yet she looks like she's in preschool, right, Mom?
Yes, she is.
My mom's voice grew even lower.
Her name is Ava, right? Has she been attending kindergarten or school regularly? She seems a bit delayed in her speech.
Of course, she has.
Grandma, is Mom over there?
A frail voice came from the other end.
Yes, Ava, do you want to talk to Mom?
No. I definitely don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Mom's.
Ava, Mary's daughter, started crying on the other end.
I don't want to end up like my sister.
I see. The grim reality seemed to hide behind those words.
We've been talking for a bit. She seems to have had an older sister.
My mom hinted at something in the past tense. So, what happened?
I don't know anything about that.
Mary hastily tried to grab her bag and clothes.
You can't.
But Mike grabbed her arm, and Joshua secured the bag and clothes. Then, turning to another phone.
Grandpa, now's the time.
With that signal, the front door opened.
Police. We received a report of trespassing and assault, and allegations of child abuse. We are here to detain the woman involved.
Sarah, good job buying us time.
Dad. The police, about 3 of them, secured Mary on the spot.
Are you all right, Miss Smith?
Yes, I am fine. The concierge was also standing by the entrance. The one who had opened the door.
It's been a while, Mary.
Dad.
One of the officers took the clothes and bag from Joshua. A blanket, likely brought in advance, was draped over Mary since they couldn't dress her in those clothes right away. Pointing to the bag, Mike said, "I haven't checked inside, but I believe it contains sleeping pills. I'll be coming along for a blood test. I have a resistance, but it should still be in my system."
We appreciate your cooperation.
Then, over the phone, my mom asked me to switch to camera mode. The camera revealed my mom holding a small girl in her arms.
Officers, this woman seems to have subjected her first child to terrible treatment, leading to the loss of a small life, our first grandchild.
Ava was wearing clothes that Joshua had outgrown long ago. My parents still had Joshua's clothes from when he was little. Joshua, who was quite big for his age when he was about to enter kindergarten. His old clothes fits on his cousin, Ava. I saw his thin, bony wrists through the cuffs.
That's my old clothes. Hi, are you Ava?
Joshua gently spoke to his cousin over the screen. This is the kindness he received from his biological dad.
Yes. Who are you?
I'm Joshua, your cousin. I'm 1 year older, so I guess I'm your big brother.
Big brother.
With that, Ava, perhaps reminded of her lost sibling, started to cry again.
You should come and play sometime.
Okay, the girl nodded meekly through the screen.
Then, Sarah, we'll take her away now. Sorry for the intrusion. Joshua, let's play chess with Grandpa later.
Okay, I'll be waiting.
Right after our exchange.
What is this? Your own little soap opera. And here I am, having lost everything.
Hearing this, I strode towards Mary and slapped her sharply across the face.
No, violent woman. Officer, arrest her for obstructing public duties too.
While restraining Mary, who was struggling, the officer gave me a wry smile and tried to calm the situation. I'm sorry, but I just had to say it to my sister.
What do you want?
Everything you've lost is because of your own actions. It's nobody else's fault. Nothing's coming back to you, and I won't let it. That child will be mine. Don't you ever dare get involved with us again.
Let's go, everyone.
Mike urged my dad.
All right, see you later, Sarah.
I'll be waiting, Dad. Take care, you all. After seeing them off, I collapsed onto the couch.
Are you okay, Mom?
I'm just really tired.
It's good we did the shopping today. Oh.
Indeed. What a day it had been. To think it had only been 6 hours since Mom's call. Later, Dad and Mike returned to say Mary would be detained by the police for a while.
No bail. Absolutely not.
Dad declared over a late dinner, his voice strained. She's already divorced, so there's no one on her side to take her in. Let's just get her tried quickly. Eventually, Mary was sentenced to actual jail time. She had caused her family back home great distress, led to the death of one child, and was now abandoned by the remaining child. Sometime later, my parents brought Ava to live with us.
You've become so pretty.
Joshua's words made Ava's face turn red.
Where did you learn to talk like that, huh?
Dad, stop. It tickles. Stop.
Joshua laughed, playing with Mike. Watching this scene of an adoptive dad and son, Ava looked on in amazement.
Are you sure, Auntie?
She mumbled about staying with us. I had prepared myself to adopt her, believing it to be the best course of action. Initially, I considered letting her grow up with my parents. However, they feared she might endure stigma as that girl's child in our hometown. My parents planned to move closer to me after retirement. We settled on the idea of traveling together for the summer holidays and Christmas. Ava seems a bit behind in her studies, making it difficult for her to attend the same school as Joshua. Yet, our life promises to be far better than her previous one. With the source of turmoil gone, we can now focus on finding happiness. We have plenty of time.
You're really clueless, aren't you? The inheritance, the inheritance. Hurry up and hand it over.
As soon as she entered the front door, my sister-in-law barged in and started talking nonstop, clearly in a good mood. We were never close, so why now? I was bewildered when these words hit me.
If it weren't for Mike's inheritance, I wouldn't come near this gloomy place.
Indeed, to her, who is dressed head to toe in glitzy clothes and accessories, the house, where her brother Mike and his widow, me, live must seem gloomy. However, I fought my sister-in-law, who wouldn't even pay respects to the deceased Mike's altar, and brought up the inheritance while standing at the entrance, was much more insidious. This attitude of hers was not something new. She was arrogant about her looks and often harsh towards my gentle husband. I heard from my husband that she changed her tune dramatically and became ingratiating once he started succeeding and earning a substantial income. I was utterly appalled by her coldness. She barely visited him during his repeated hospital stays due to chronic illness, and didn't shed a single tear at the funeral. I had decided to cut ties with her, but the greedy sister-in-law would not allow that.
Come on, I don't have all day. Hurry up, you must be busy, right?
The sister-in-law, with her eyes sparkling childishly, was convinced she would receive the inheritance without a doubt. But I hold something that will distort that expression of hers. It's the last words from my late husband. This will explain everything. I am Sally. Widowed early in my mid-60s, I led a modest life, not growing taller than necessary. About a month ago, I lost my beloved husband. It was due to a worsening of a chronic illness that he had been dealing with for many years. My husband and I met and married when we were both in our 40s, so we didn't have any children. For 20 years, we supported each other, so the sense of loss at that time was significant. I even considered following him in death, wondering if there was any need to continue cooking for someone else since we had no children, but I lacked the courage, embarrassingly. Moreover, my late husband repeatedly told me, no matter what happens to me, don't get discouraged, you are an independent and wonderful woman. I couldn't ignore the words of my husband, now his last testament. Life changed drastically after my husband passed away. I was with him in the hospital at midnight, and right after, I was arranging the funeral, and everything proceeded smoothly. It was the only time I was saved from being sad or thinking about my husband in a daze. Encouraged by many, including my sister and her husband, who helped with the funeral preparations, I managed to get through that tumultuous month. I barely remember that time, but my sister later told me, You did a fine job sending Mike off. He must be resting peacefully in heaven. Despite the initial confusion and stress that made me ill for a few days, not everything was bad. More people attended the funeral than I expected. Since my husband had originally worked for a nationally known company and was an executive at its headquarters, I expected that many people I did not know would be there. Indeed, the people from the company who attended the ceremony spoke highly of my husband's good character, and even sent him off with tears in their eyes. There were even attendees who flew in from international branches, sharing how they often went out for drinks when my husband visited their locations. Though I regret not spending more time with each person, I diligently noted everyone's names and addresses to properly express my gratitude later through condolence returns. My sister and her husband helped greatly with these arrangements, so now I can finally catch my breath. I feel immense gratitude, thinking this was due to my husband's gentle nature. While I want to boast about being blessed with such a wonderful person, I sometimes wonder if that was always the case, particularly because of my sister-in-law. The presence of my husband's sister, my sister-in-law, was the cause of the problem. She's significantly younger than my husband. Compared to women her age, she's youthful in appearance and manner, making her somewhat famous in our neighborhood. She's aware of her beauty and seems to enjoy polishing it daily. Up to this point, there was no issue. She's 58, so not exactly young, and I can't help but think she shouldn't be wearing mini skirts and showing off her legs anymore, but that's not really for me to judge, so I don't worry about it. The problem is that she always finds a way to make snide remarks to me. I'm not as pretty as she is, nor do I have the enthusiasm for yoga or spa visits.
Sally, you always look so dowdy. Aren't you embarrassed to be such a country bumpkin? Mike was wealthy, so why didn't he marry someone more beautiful?
She greets me with such insults and scrutinizes everything I wear as if appraising its value.
What's with using a no-name brand bag at your age? And those shoes. How long have you had them? You were wearing them the last time we met, weren't you? Sloppy people can be spotted by their accessories, even if their clothes are decent. I can tell right away. Doesn't Mike buy you anything? He's not into material things, so if you ask, he'd probably buy them, right?
I have enough bags and shoes, though not as many as my sister-in-law. If she calls me sloppy, so be it, but I've always been someone who doesn't shop much. In fact, I make it a point to throw away something old whenever I buy something new, so my house is rather Spartan. On anniversaries and birthdays, when asked by my husband if I wanted anything, I would without hesitation plan a trip. To me, objects can be bought anytime, but memories are priceless and irreplaceable. Now that my husband is gone, I'm glad I continued making that choice. Every time my sister-in-law made a snide comment, I would hint at this belief, but she would just scoff.
Mike wasn't much to look at either, so in that sense, you were a good match, right? But grabbing such a man to marry must mean you were after his money, weren't you?
No matter the insult, she always concluded with this. This is what troubles me about her. She insists I married my husband for his money and spreads this among relatives. Indeed, there were many women who approached my husband with that intent. He wasn't into gambling or nightlife, his only hobby was fishing, so I vividly remember being surprised by his savings when we got married. But I never had the intention to live lavishly off it. At that time, I too had a 20-year career with my company and had a decent amount of savings, not as much as my husband, but substantial. Our shared value of not overspending was one of the reasons we got married, not because I was after his money as my sister-in-law claimed. I explained this to her and asked her to correct the misunderstanding with relatives, but she never listened to me. She seems to have unilaterally decided that we don't get along and always finds something to criticize. My sister-in-law has always been competitive, and even my husband tried to avoid her when he was alive. Perhaps that's why she hardly helped with the funeral preparations. Although I was the chief mourner, she never once offered condolences when my husband started getting sick or when he was hospitalized. She even got angry when I contacted her about it, saying, "Don't bother me with such things." So I resolved never to tell her anything again, even in my heart. However, to avoid affecting my husband's condition, I pretended in front of him that his sister was concerned, telling him gentle lies. Ultimately, until his death, my sister-in-law never showed herself in front of my husband, and even at the wake, she acted as if she was reluctantly doing us a favor, like it was someone else's problem. Yet, the relatives around her would whisper, "She's been crying every day since she heard her brother was ill, almost losing her appetite and unable to shed tears. That's why she looks so drained. Maybe she didn't visit the hospital because she couldn't bear to see Mike in a weakened state." Hearing this, I was overwhelmed by an indescribable frustration, mixed with the shock of losing my husband, and I teared up right there. My sister-in-law, talked about as if she were a tragic heroine, looked too well-nourished to have lost her appetite, with no tear stains or swollen eyes. Despite telling me not to contact her, she acted meekly in front of the relatives. My sister, sensing my feelings, skillfully led me away, otherwise I might have lost my composure, yelled at the relatives. Realizing that my sister-in-law is selfish to the core, showing no respect even for the deceased, I resolved to limit any future interactions with her. I slowly sorted through my husband's belongings, balancing it with work and household tasks, while also healing emotionally. At first, every item of his that disappeared felt like erasing a memory, but I reminded myself that the memories with my husband were etched in my heart. While cherishing the time with those who occasionally visited the altar, I tried to regain my peaceful life. But, as expected, it was my sister-in-law who shattered this tranquility. She rang the doorbell and rattled the sliding door.
"Sally, you're there, right? Your sister-in-law has come all this way, so open up."
I never thought of her as my sister, but she yelled as if to make sure the neighbors heard. I was hanging laundry and couldn't pretend not to be home.
"What were you doing? You made me wait so long. I almost got sunburned."
As soon as I opened the door, before I could speak, she barged in, thrusting a fancy foreign brand shopping bag into my hands and starting to take off her shoes. "What's this all of a sudden?" I managed to ask, to which she dramatically sighed.
"Look, I've been so busy and couldn't visit, right? I thought you might be feeling down, so I brought something nice."
She snatched back the shopping bag she had handed me and began pulling out items while standing there. Jewelry, perfume, and fancy baked goods, none of which seemed appropriate for me. Did she really think I would be genuinely happy to receive these? Besides, my sister-in-law acted obnoxiously nice to me today.
"I know I've been harsh to you, Sally, but you were the wife chosen by my only brother. I didn't want his wealth to fall into the hands of a gold digger. But seeing you at the funeral, I realized you were different. Only someone who truly loved Mike could shed so many tears and give a speech with disheveled hair, disregarding what others might think."
She's not used to praising people, it seems. Even when trying to appease me, she comments on my appearance and actions. However, the way she looked at me seemed almost respectful, as if meeting someone she admired, infused with a certain passion. Despite my confusion over her abruptly changed demeanor, she continued to shower me with compliments. Feeling increasingly suffocated by the presence of someone whose true thoughts were inscrutable, I gently said, "I'm sorry, but I haven't settled the estate yet. The house isn't in a state for visitors, so perhaps you could just pay your respects to Mike." Then, with her usual cold gaze, she looked at me and shouted, "You really are oblivious. Do you think I came here just to see your gloomy faces?"
"It's about the inheritance. Isn't that obvious? You shouldn't have to make me say it."
"Excuse me." Confused by my sister-in-law's demanding gesture, palms up as if waiting to receive something, I was at a loss.
"How long do you think I've waited? I have a pretty good idea of how much Mike earned, so I know roughly how much I should get from the inheritance. Even if you try to hoard it, Sally, it's futile. Hand it over now. If you think of deceiving, I'll call the lawyers and the police."
The division of property is being handled by the lawyers, so there's no deceiving here.
"Don't play dumb. I'm entitled to half of the inheritance. It's supposed to be split between you and me, right?"
I tilted my head at my sister-in-law, who was screaming with her face beet red. I had heard from the lawyer that siblings of the deceased are entitled to a quarter of the estate, which is divided further if there are more siblings. Since my husband and his sister were the only siblings, she would normally receive a quarter of the money. However, my husband often spoke about this issue before he died, pondering what to do. No wonder, as his sister had mocked his looks since childhood, and along with their parents, who favored the beautiful sister, seemed to have bullied him. To prove them wrong, my husband studied hard, earned scholarships, worked part-time, attended a top-tier university, and secured a job at a major company, eventually becoming very successful. That was about all he shared about himself, indicating he must have had a tough life before. Indeed, anyone would be troubled by the thought of the estate passing to such a sister. I, having been consulted about this, urged that the final decision was his to make. I only learned of my husband's decision after he passed away. Unaware of all this, my sister-in-law changed her tone drastically.
So you, just a wife, are going to take most of the inheritance. You're a money grubber too. I always thought it was suspicious, you marrying that plain man after turning 40. The only reason to spend a life with someone who has nothing but money is clear. Listening quietly, what about love? What about values? It's all just talk in the end. Give me half of my share right now, and I'll disappear. So hurry up.
Her sweet words and gifts seemed aimed at wresting my inherited wealth. Given her constant antagonism, I had suspected some ulterior motive. Her loudly screaming at the entrance of the house, where my husband's altar stood, confirmed her extreme lack of morals. I wondered what my husband, listening quietly from heaven, would think, and told my sister-in-law to wait while I fetched a certain document. Her eyes lit up upon hearing this, saying things like, "You really are understanding, Sally, and let's go have some fancy French food with that money." I didn't respond to her pace, and brought the document from the back of the room to give to her. "Here, from Mike, this is for you." What I handed her was my husband's last letter, his will. Upon realizing this, she quickly unfolded the tri-folded paper and scanned through it. Her perfectly symmetrical eyebrows moved up and down, clearly showing her disturbance at the letter's content.
What does this mean? I didn't know anything about this.
Her ignorance was her own fault for never trying to see her brother. I almost spoke out, but she slumped down weakly, likely not to grasp my words. The will stated that my husband shall inherit all his property to me. As a final act of gratitude to his wife, who had supported him in every way, leading a peaceful and fulfilling life together, he dedicated everything he had to me, leaving behind a letter so passionately worded it was almost embarrassing to read aloud. Reading this, I felt a warm surge of emotion, realizing that even in illness, my husband had thought of me, even though the main goal was to leave not a penny to his sister. In the end, there was absolutely no money left for the sister-in-law. The answer was clear, but my sister-in-law, staring into space, muttered, "What does this mean?" With her face pale, she was unresponsive to anything I said, so I almost had to force her out of the door and quickly locked it behind her. Through the door's window glass, I could faintly see her shadow swaying from side to side, dragging her body away. I thought she wouldn't bother me after reading the will, but to my dismay, she called me the next afternoon.
I never thought you were such a vile person, Sally. You deceived me so well.
Even over the phone, I could feel the intensity of her fury, giving me chills. But I hadn't done anything wrong, and I didn't deserve to be called wicked by her. I was about to respond, but she cut me off.
You think you've got the upper hand by pushing me down. Well, too bad, because you're about to see your face twist in agony. This is your punishment for angering me. I won't forgive you even if you beg.
I vaguely understood she was talking about the inheritance, but I had no idea what she meant by me feeling pain or begging. Silenced by confusion, she mistook my silence for fear and began to laugh loudly.
See, it's too late for apologies. I'd love to see you now, but I'm busy. I've just secured an appointment with my lawyer.
She boasted as if victorious, but I couldn't understand why she needed to see a lawyer or why she was telling me this. Instead of bothering me, she should just stick to her usual activities like yoga or spa treatments. I fought absent-mindedly. Then she yelled, "Don't you get the situation? Talking to you just frustrates me, which is bad for my beauty."
I'm not satisfied with the estate division, so I'm preparing to file a complaint. I don't know if you and Mike schemed alone, but a wife taking all the inheritance is unheard of. It's against the law. You can't just show Mike's will and expect me to shut up. You don't have a shred of conscience to use your sick husband just for your own gain. I have a right to my inheritance, and I'm going to claim it.
Apparently, she believed I was plotting to monopolize the inheritance. Thinking I had influenced Mike to write the will, I couldn't stay silent. "It's a waste of time for you." Mike personally handed that will to the lawyer. I only read it afterward, and I couldn't have tampered with it. Also, the lawyer said, "You have no claim to the inheritance, so I think it's best you don't bother, as they won't take your case seriously." Her voice grew louder, possibly infuriated by my calm response.
What's with that tone? You won't be so composed for long. Just keep sitting pretty. I'm serious. I've called several times since yesterday and finally got an appointment. The lawyer must recognize my determination. They're on my side and can even get me compensation from you.
With a villain-like line, "Remember this," she hung up the phone. I couldn't fathom why she called, as she wouldn't have listened to anything I said. Perhaps she thought the mention of a lawyer would unsettle me. Far from reflecting on not receiving a penny from her brother, she was determined to take it by any means, which was almost refreshing. Months passed without incident, and I managed to tidy up my husband's cluttered study. Gradually packing up, I left our home filled with memories of my husband. He had always wanted to retire to a quiet house in the suburbs, so I decided to fulfill that wish. I sold the house and land we lived in, and used the proceeds as a down payment to move to the area where my sister and her husband live. It's regrettable we couldn't do it while my husband was alive, but our dog Maya, who lived with us for over 10 years, was delighted with the new home. She frolicked on the smooth flooring, so I bought a light-colored carpet to prevent strain on her legs from slipping. Letting go of our old home meant fewer possessions, but it also meant I could gradually create a more comfortable living space, which gave me something to look forward to. Yet, the eerie feeling of my husband not being there lingered, making the sparse furniture seem even lonelier. Especially when Maya was asleep, I found myself lost in thought, though I knew it wasn't good for me. One day, my phone rang as if to interrupt my hazy feelings. I jumped up and picked up the phone without checking who was on the other end of the line.
You're going to kick me to the bone, you pestilence.
It was my sister-in-law. Her sudden yelling woke me up completely, but I still had no idea what she was on about. Sensing my silence, she continued without waiting for a response.
It's your fault I'm getting divorced, because the inheritance didn't come through.
What? My absurd response was just a guess at her meaning. She probably told her husband they would get my husband's inheritance, and their relationship soured when it vanished. But to reach divorce over not getting an inheritance speaks volumes about the fragility of their marriage. It's not fair to dump their issues on me.
Why don't you apologize instead of staying silent? Your fault we can't make ends meet. What am I supposed to do all by myself?
You could get a job, you're still young in your 50s. She fell silent after my calm reply. Maybe she was irritated by the words just work, or maybe she was caught up in the term in her 50s. Whatever the case, my sister-in-law needs to get her feet on the ground and accept reality. If you lived on your husband's salary, you shouldn't need the inheritance. Why the divorce?
He was after Mike's wealth from the start. He said, "If we're not getting your brother's inheritance, you're useless to me. You're just a woman with good looks and money, decades spent together, all for nothing. I want my time back." It was an intense argument. Why should I be the one getting yelled at? He's the pitiful one, earning so little. I want my time back.
I only met my sister-in-law's husband when they got engaged, and then at holiday family gatherings. Like her, he favored flashy brands and luxury cars, giving off a frivolous impression. Her comment about his low salary suggests they probably both relied on approaching others for money. They surely had no savings and must have been living off my brother-in-law's income. Given the luxury items both my sister-in-law and her husband flaunted, they had no right to complain, having indulged themselves with his money. He married her out of selfishness and a penchant for extravagance, so it was all his own doing.
I even got turned away by the lawyer I consulted, who confirmed there was no inheritance for me. Everyone's against me, but you're the one I can't forgive. If you hadn't been around, none of this would have happened.
My sister-in-law apparently went to her lawyer, even though I had called to stop her. As I said, it was a wasted opportunity and a red herring.
Sally, you must have brainwashed my husband, right? He said he should have married someone like you. Why does your name come up in his words? You must have been seducing him behind my back.
How does that even make sense? I don't even have your husband's contact information.
Lies. My husband has never praised a plain woman like you before. You must have seduced him and had an affair. Confess, and I might forgive you if you give me the inheritance.
How? This conversation is pointless. Overwhelmed by her absurd accusations, I ended the call. The house was already being demolished, and the land was sold, so her showing up would be futile. I hadn't shared my new address, so our chances of meeting were nearly non-existent. I immediately set up a call block, deciding to live peacefully from now on. About 6 months passed, and I adapted to life with my dog, Maya. I dined out once or twice a month with my sister and her husband, enjoying my days. Sometimes we ate in the room with my husband's altar, which he probably appreciated. Thanks to regular health checks, my recent medical exam showed no issues, and local shops provided convenience, leaving me with little worry. The only concern was a call from the social services a few months back. divorced and broke, my sister-in-law had applied for welfare. However, officials stated she couldn't receive it if she had family to assist, but relatives who once flattered her unanimously refused to help. Her lavish past was well known, leading to her isolation from family. Social services then contacted me, but given her past actions and motives, I felt no obligation to help. I don't care if she was on good terms with my husband before he died, but since she and her ex-husband joined forces and slipped up together, only looking for money, and did not even behave properly at the funeral, I have no right to do anything about it now. I hope that she will reflect on her actions and live her life, since she herself became addicted to money, even though she had always said that I was just after money. I don't know what happened after that. According to rumors, my sister-in-law got into trouble at the job she finally found and resigned in a flash. The neighbors of the house where my sister-in-law was living found out that her ex-husband was no longer around and moved out. When they found out about the mature divorce, which could be taken as a lie or a truth. No one around me knew how my sister-in-law was living or where she was, and I gradually forgot about her because I myself was not interested. Having regained peace of mind, I spent more time with Maya than ever before. Maya, who had always been quiet like my husband, stopped barking as she got older, and I was worried about her. My sister, who had always been a dog lover, must have grown attached to Maya as she often took care of her, because one day she suddenly contacted me to tell me that she had gotten a puppy. I excitedly went to my sister and her husband's house, and was greeted by him. Immediately, Maya's eyes lit up as she walked up to the puppy and looked at it with delight as it bounced around. I watched the scene with a smile on my face, hoping he would become a good friend to Maya.
On the phone, my sister was gloating as usual. She seemed to really enjoy tormenting me and making me feel miserable. I could easily imagine the spiteful smirk on her face.
I'm getting married, you know? I'll be expecting a gift of $10,000 from you.
The man she's marrying is my ex-fiancé. Yes, incredibly, she stole my fiancé from me. What a terrible woman. It's really sickening to think I'm related to her by blood. But to me now, she's no enemy. Her gloating is just laughable. I won't let her have her way anymore. I responded as cheerfully as I could. Sure, I'll be there with my husband, the CEO who makes $300 million a year. I could picture the confused look on her face. Before she could ask any probing questions, I hung up. It's going to be a tearful wedding. Tears of regret, not joy. My name is Emily, and I'm 33 years old. Ever since I can remember, I've been trampled on by my sister. My sister, Lisa, is 2 years older than me. She's capable of doing everything without a hitch, and she's both beautiful and stylish. But in my opinion, her inner self is just vile. She always ridiculed me.
I refuse to acknowledge a failure like you as my sister, you know?
I still remember her cold gaze. Being looked down upon, the young me was incredibly hurt. I was always made to feel small because everything I did was criticized. Lisa standing tall and proud, and me with my back hunched. We were such contrasting sisters. There's no denying Lisa is pretty. Both our parents always fussed over her, the good-looking one. Meanwhile, plain old me was ignored. The difference in treatment was clear. Looking back, it's like we were the very embodiment of light and shadow. Lisa was popular at school, too. She was good at studies and sports, and pretty. Cheerful and bright, she was the center of attention. The typical top of the social hierarchy, her influence at school was huge. You might think I benefited somehow from being her sister, but no, that was far from the case. She despised me for being slow-witted, so I faced losses rather than gains.
Don't you dare speak to me at school. I really hate you, you know?
It was unbearable hearing her say that in front of everyone. Everyone around me saw me as the family-approved punching bag. There was no smile on my face during my school days. That's for sure. Whenever my sister interacted with me, her attitude was always the worst, and her language was incredibly foul. I was the only one who knew her ugly true nature. I don't think even our parents knew the full extent. In middle school, I stood up to my sister just once. I couldn't just take it anymore. I felt I had to retaliate somehow. Stop taking your stress out on me all the time.
What? How dare you, the younger sister, talk back to me?
As a result, I ended up being treated even worse than before. It was then that my things began to be used without permission or even thrown away. Whether it was school-related or not, my sister used and treated my belongings however she wanted. Stop it! Please, at least don't mess up my textbooks and stationery.
It's your fault for being so cheeky. You need to reflect and apologize.
I think our parents must have been aware of the nature of our fights. They must have known that my sister was unilaterally exerting her power and tormenting me, the weaker one. But they did nothing about it. As long as it made my sister happy, what happened to me didn't matter to them. Our other relatives were no different. No one would reprimand my sister. No one would help me. I still despise my parents and relatives for that. They are as guilty as my sister. My sister would act sweet in front of the family but show her demonic nature only to me. My parents, who must have had an inkling of her two-faced nature, chose to ignore it. Relatives, too, side as an issue between the parties involved and opted to remain bystanders. In such a toxic environment, it was inevitable that I, a naive child, would develop a distrust of people. I became isolated, withdrawn, and as I grew up, I turned into an increasingly introverted and quiet woman. I wanted to cut ties with my sister, parents, and relatives as soon as possible and start a completely new life. That became a vague dream of mine. Imagining myself living freely, liberated from all ties, helped me preserve my fragile mind. However, an incident that cemented the hostile relationship between my sister and me happened. When she was a freshman in college and I was a sophomore in high school. At that time, I was at the peak of happiness. I had a boyfriend for the first time in my life. I was surprised myself that someone as negative as me could have a boyfriend. His name was Joe. We were in the same grade, both library committee members, and similarly introverted. I think our wavelengths just matched. We got to know each other through a slight connection and quickly became close. Some people teased us, calling us the gloomy couple, but we ignored them. Let them say whatever they want. No one could interfere with us. That's how strongly I felt. I was so intoxicated with the first sense of fulfillment that I seemed to lose sight of everything around me. And then I made a mistake. Carried away, I revealed to my parents about my boyfriend. I've been dating a boy my age. His name is Joe. My parents always compared me to my sister, calling me slow and making fun of me. I wanted to prove to them that I could get a boyfriend too. There's no doubt that my heart was overflowing with such show-off feelings at the time. It might have been wrong of me. A while after summer vacation began, the daily messages from Joe suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Did something happen? I asked in emails, but there was no reply. Normally, you would check with mutual friends in such a situation. But unfortunately, we didn't have any. I didn't have the courage to visit his house either. Exactly 2 weeks after the communication ceased, Joe emailed me saying goodbye. It wasn't a joke. I couldn't just accept being broken up with without knowing why. I called him to find out why he suddenly wanted to break up. Please tell me the reason. I can't accept this without understanding why. Joe just kept repeating, I'm really sorry. In the end, I never got a detailed explanation. All I could do was accept the breakup he announced. From that afternoon until midnight, I cried nonstop without eating anything. A few days later, when I visited a mall for an errand, I encountered a scene that made me doubt my eyes. My sister and Joe were walking arm in arm. What the hell is this? What's going on? I yelled right there, not caring about the eyes of passers-by. I was boiling with anger towards my sister and Joe. My sister pulled Joe closer as if to flaunt him and smirk.
Joe says he prefers me over you.
I can't believe this. Who normally steals their sister's boyfriend?
Say whatever you want. A gloomy loser like you having a boyfriend is a century too early.
Joe just hung his head, looking sorry and not moving. He seemed ashamed of his fickleness, yet also resigned. I later found out that my parents had told my sister about Joe. Upon learning that I had a boyfriend, my sister said it was presumptuous of me. The surprise came next. During her summer break from college, my sister approached Joe multiple times. Joe, tempted by my experienced sister, quickly fell into her hands.
Well, we'll take our leave then. Being alone suits you better.
I was overwhelmed with rage. What made me even angrier was what happened afterward. The day after we met at the mall, my sister dumped Joe. I think she felt satisfied with the harassment she inflicted on me and no longer needed him. Joe called me wanting to meet and apologize in person, saying he wanted to start over. There was no way we could. I rejected him and confirmed our breakup again. I couldn't stop crying. Until my college days and up to my 5th year as a working adult, there wasn't much to write about. I excluded my sister from my life and lived trying not to remember the unpleasant things. Since I still resented my parents and relatives, I didn't go back home, not even for the holidays or Christmas. The only time I willingly returned home was when a gathering for adults was held in my hometown. I had resolved never to set foot there again after that event. At the time, my sister was a senior in college, enjoying her last year to the fullest. She came back at the same time as me and got drunk, rambling on and on.
My current boyfriend is the worst. Can you believe he's cheating on me, even though he has me?
The world is vast, and there are always better people out there. It seemed there were many women at university prettier than my sister. She vented her frustration about not always being the top until she was satisfied. I got my second boyfriend when I became comfortable with my job and had some breathing space in life. We met through a friend's introduction. His name was Tyler, an elite banker.
Both my parents are bankers, so I guess I'm a thoroughbred.
Saying that he liked curious-looking women like me. He always made me feel good. Because of the bitter memories from high school, I told no one about my boyfriend. After a year of dating, Tyler proposed to me, and I was finally able to get engaged. I thought I could finally be happy. I decided not to tell my parents or sister about the engagement. I shared with Tyler and his parents in detail how my family had made me suffer. I thought they would surely sympathize and understand my desire to cut ties with my family. That's what I was thinking, but a few weeks after the engagement, the unbelievable happened again. My sister stole Tyler from me, repeating the nightmare of high school. When I suddenly couldn't contact him, Tyler broke up with me after a while.
Emily, I'm sorry. I've fallen for someone else.
You're kidding, right? Tell me it's not my sister, please.
How did you know?
I was utterly confused. I had kept my relationship with him a secret. I hadn't told anyone in my family, nor had I planned to. Yet somehow, my sister found out. Why though? What caused this? That's when I started to consider revenge and thoroughly investigated my sister, especially how she got my information. Life is strange. In the process of taking action, I also had a special encounter. Time flew by, and 3 years after Tyler broke up with me, I received a call from my sister. She was getting married to Tyler.
We're getting married. I'll be expecting a wedding gift of $10,000.
It was going to be a garden wedding. She was gloating as usual. After all, she was marrying my ex-fiancé. The perfect ingredient to torment me and make me miserable. I could easily imagine her spiteful smile, much to my disgust. What a terrible woman. It's just too painful to know that I'm related to someone like her by blood. But 3 years can change a person and their destiny. To me now, my sister is no longer an enemy. Her gloating is just ridiculous. I won't let her have her way anymore. I responded as brightly as I could. Sure, I'll go with my husband, the CEO whose company makes $300 million a year. I could picture my sister's confused face. Before she could ask any detailed questions, I ended the call. The wedding day would surely be filled with tears. Tears of regret, not joy. On the day of my sister's wedding, I revealed that I was already married. Not just my sister, but also my parents and other relatives were surprised.
Why didn't you tell your family something so important?
I didn't want to. You weren't the kind of family I felt like contacting. That's the only reason. Everyone was stunned by my blunt response. I felt a sense of satisfaction. Then I called my husband, who was waiting at the edge of the garden. Walking towards me was a tall man with a commanding presence, the very image of a businessman. My husband, James, had turned a near-bankrupt local factory into a global enterprise. He had expanded into many areas, and now the group's annual sales were up to $300 million. James, having achieved great business success, exuded the aura of a victor. He overwhelmed my relatives present there.
Nice to meet you all. I am James, Emily's partner. I apologize for the late introduction. Congratulations on your wedding, Lisi.
What do you mean, congratulations? How dare you marry someone's sister behind their back? Isn't it common sense to ask for her hand properly?
Of course, I intended to do so, but Emily stopped me. I understood why after she explained. Lisi, you're truly despicable.
What do you mean despicable? What are you talking about?
From childhood, you tormented Emily, and even as teenagers and adults, you stole her boyfriends and flaunted marrying them. Isn't such behavior despicable?
Lisa, looking up at the towering James, was at a loss for words, as everything he said was true. The wedding guests started murmuring, turning their attention to the bride's dark side being exposed. James didn't stop, encouraged by my gesture to continue.
And it's the same with you, the parents always siding with Lisa and neglecting Emily, and the relatives too. Don't you know the meaning of fairness? Looking back, isn't it natural for Emily to disown you?
No one could respond. My parents hung their heads like scolded children. Despite being much older than James, then Tyler, the man who was my fiancé until 3 years ago, approached. Having been seduced by Lisa to leave me, an elite banker. When he realized James was speaking, Tyler started to grovel.
James, what brings you here? Today is my wedding.
Hey Tyler, I know, congratulations. Your wife told mine to bring a $10,000 wedding gift. I wanted to see what kind of woman would say such a thing.
What, Lisa, you did? And wife, James's wife, could it be?
Tyler looked back and forth between me and James, bewildered. When I nodded in affirmation, Tyler's mouth hung open in shock. So Tyler, James, a top executive of a major corporation, was someone he could not afford to displease. Discovering that the woman he discarded had married such an influential person naturally threw him off balance. James, on my behalf, continued to sternly address Tyler, who was visibly flustered.
We always appreciate the services of your bank, and you've had your share of troubles dealing with us. But Tyler, it's pretty low of you, isn't it?
Low, you say?
You were engaged to Emily, right? Yet you chose her sister over her. Didn't you feel any remorse towards Emily? And to invite her to your wedding, that's in poor taste, to say the least. I never thought you were that kind of person.
No, it's not like that. I was against inviting Emily, but...
Save your excuses. I don't want to entrust our group's finances to a bank that employs such unprincipled people. I'm considering changing our main bank. Tell that to your president from me.
Please, not that. I can't make such a report.
Tyler was prostrating before James, begging for forgiveness. A pitiful sight for one of the day's main characters. Seeing her partner in such a state, my sister trembled. Not enough. This won't settle it. I didn't let up. Wait, James. In a way, Tyler is also a victim. The real culprit is my sister, right, Tyler? You felt sorry for me and suggested not inviting me to the wedding, but she insisted. Isn't that right?
Yes, exactly. Lisa went ahead with her plans, saying she wanted to harass Emily to the end. I tried to stop her. It was terrible.
Tyler, how can you say that? You're making me out to be the villain.
I'm just stating the facts. You had such a malicious look on your face back then.
Just as I intended, the newly vowed couple started to bicker in the chapel. I raised my voice so the surrounding relatives could hear. That's her true nature. Since we were kids, she's been mean to me, spouting abusive words and stealing my boyfriends. Yet, she was adored by everyone around her. I continued exposing the harsh truth about my sister, her two-faced nature. How she commanded me not to speak to her in public, her overt disdain, her theft and misuse of my belongings, and how she even sold some of them. I didn't want to recall it, but I recounted how she stole my first boyfriend in high school. The day after flaunting a relationship with that boyfriend, she dumped him. She was done harassing me, so he was no longer of use to her. Be careful, Tyler, not to meet the same fate.
It's not like that. There was another reason we broke up. I can't remember right now, but it wasn't because the harassment was over.
My sister frantically tried to defend herself, but no one believed her. The atmosphere was telling. I could also tell from everyone's expressions. They were appalled. The garden wedding had turned into an away game for the bride. Right? You can't just dump Tyler. Marrying an elite banker isn't something anyone can easily do. I was devastated 3 years ago. Do you understand how it feels to have your fiancé stolen, sister? Probably not.
It's your fault for being slow-witted.
Really? I don't think so. It's much worse to secretly approach and steal your sister's fiancé. Oh, I get it. You don't realize you're doing something wrong. That's why you can do such things so easily.
Emily, enough already.
Who should be saying enough? Stop messing up people's lives. I've done my research, you know. Sister, you were always chasing after other people's men in college, garnering plenty of resentment, right? My sister stepped back, unnerved. She was scared, not knowing how much I knew. I was aware of almost everything about her college life, which is just as I touched upon a moment ago. How she repeatedly seduced and stole other women's boyfriends, earning nicknames like Crusher or Maneater. The dark side of a beautiful, academically successful college student. It reveals her hidden nature. Such a dishonorable reputation. You stole people's boyfriends to affirm your own attractiveness, right? You wanted to bask in a sense of superiority and then discarded them quickly. What you did was despicable, wrong, and shameful. As your sister, I'm embarrassed.
Stop. Don't make things up.
Making things up. You're the one lying. I told you, I've done thorough research. I met with each victim personally and heard their stories. Remember Ashley, Monica, Yolanda, Heather, Rachel, and Rose? They all had their boyfriends stolen by you, and they still resent you to this day. When I named these specific individuals, my sister's complexion changed. She realized her excuses were futile, having been relentlessly counted by the sister she always looked down upon. Now she was utterly deflated. Neither our parents, relatives, nor the wedding staff could stop me. Even if they tried, James intervened. Feeling it was time, I decided to deliver the final blow to my devastated sister. By the way, how did you find out about my engagement with Tyler 3 years ago? I didn't tell anyone. As James mentioned earlier, I despised everyone, so I had no intention of sharing even after getting married. Tyler and his parents understood that.
Well, someone told me.
Who was it? When I was in high school, it was our parents who informed you about my boyfriend, right? You interfered, saying I was too presumptuous. But it's different now. I haven't told anyone in our family. No one I met after starting work had any connection to my sister. Yet, she knew about my engagement with Tyler and meddled. Who told you? Who enabled this? I pressed on.
I don't know. I can remember. Does it matter right now?
It matters a lot. Lisa, lying only makes things worse. Just be honest. No one informed you about me and Tyler, right? So how did you find out?
What? What are you trying to say?
I turned my smartphone screen toward my sister for everyone to see. Displayed was an image of her and a scene of her entering my room without permission. She turned pale and froze in shock. Surprised, I thoroughly investigated how my relationship with Tyler back then came to light. I considered all possibilities and found it. Lisa, you planted a bug in my room. That's why you knew everything.
Bugging? No way. Lisa, did you bug your own sister?
Her breathing became erratic, and she began shaking her head in denial. She seemed to have an expression that didn't want to admit anything. It's no lie. You would do anything to outdo me and make me miserable. You probably took the key to my room without permission when I visited home once for a gathering. That's why you could come and go as you pleased. I suspect she also found my current address from items I had during that visit. She must have acted while I was in the bathroom or away. Using the information and duplicate key, she later installed the bug in my residence. The bug is still there, with your fingerprints, I bet.
That's a lie. All a fabrication.
But how else can you explain having a key to my room? You've been entering my house, right? Were you there to replace the bug? Didn't you notice the camera?
Under current law, bugging itself may not be criminal, but illegal entry is. Are you prepared for the consequences, Lisa?
But I'm the older sister. What's wrong with entering my sister's room?
Who had said she couldn't accept such an imperfect sister? Whether you're siblings or not, entering someone's room with a stolen key is a crime. I'll have James's lawyer friend help, and we'll formally charge you. I will make her admit her guilt through a trial or whatever it takes. Then I will make her apologize until she's thoroughly remorseful. That's the extent of my revenge. For now, it's still ongoing. The venue fell silent. The sky seemed empty. My sister sat down and began to cry. Instead of comforting her, Tyler looked down and said,
Sorry, can we pretend this marriage never happened?
What? What are you talking about? Stop saying weird things.
What's weird about it? It's only natural to want a divorce. I knew you could be scary, but I never imagined you were this despicable. I want a divorce.
No way. I will never agree to a divorce.
James, Emily, I'm truly sorry for all the trouble. I will end my relationship with this woman, so please continue to support our company as before.
No way. Unbelievable. Traitor.
My sister, unable to bear it, began crying and tried to lash out at Tyler, but our parents held her back. There was nothing about my sister to sympathize with. Her faults were clear to anyone listening to our exchange. Her tear-streaked face was grotesquely distorted, almost worth capturing in a photo. Whatever happened to the wedding, I no longer cared. James and I left the scene. Later, James received a call from Tyler, who managed to finalize the divorce for my sister. From Tyler's tone, I could picture my sister's pitiful state.
She begged me not to leave her, saying she'd do anything, crying and pleading. It was quite a scene.
Tyler recounted, trying desperately to regain our favor. He spoke harshly of my sister, forcing her into agreeing to the divorce. She had brought it upon herself. Frankly, afterward, I sued my sister for trespassing and sought damages for emotional distress. She had worked at a trading company, but the bugging and divorce scandal became known at her workplace, making her position untenable. She resigned, citing personal reasons, and returned to live a slovenly life at our parents' home, according to them. Prompted by relatives, my parents apologized for their past behavior, regretting their preferential treatment of my sister and neglect of me. Like Tyler, they mockingly shared details of my sister's current miserable state. She couldn't adjust to a lower standard of living, wasting money despite being jobless, rapidly depleting her savings, and resorting to begging our parents for money. Her appearance also suffered. Stress eating caused her to gain weight rapidly, erasing any traces of her former beauty. Now a neglected woman in her 40s, she does nothing but complain. If she has the energy to complain about others, there's no need to worry about her. I advised my parents over the phone not to pamper her too much. It would be better for her to work and face herself, for her own sake, realizing her foolish actions. My parents suggested I visit with James, but I politely declined. A couple of apologies won't make amends. I won't set foot in my hometown again. Even as my parents age, they will realize the extent of their mistreatment. They can spend their twilight years regretting and reflecting with their unworthy eldest daughter. Then, I ended the call. I now feel content in my life with James, feeling cherished in a happy marriage. 3 years ago, consumed by hatred, I hired a private investigator to monitor my sister's actions. By chance, James, the company's advisor, was there and sympathized greatly with me. As they say, when one god abandons you, another will pick you up. Life is truly unpredictable. Recently, I discovered I'm pregnant with a boy. Much to James's excitement about having an heir. Since standing my ground at the wedding, my life has been on an upswing, with James continually expanding his business. Both of us are on the rise, it seems. After enduring so much unpleasantness, we aim to be happier than anyone else from now on. For that reason, I'm committed to staying as positive as possible.